Blair was awakened by someone calling out to him. "Blair, Blair, wake up." He blinked slowly. The whole class erupted in laughter. Ha ha ha, how can someone that dumb still be in school? Blair was getting mocked again. And he sat there dazed, not understanding what was going on. Then he looked around at the unfamiliar classroom in shock. Where am I? Is this a dream? Jasmine gently tugged on Blair's sleeve. "Blair, Ms. Brittany is calling you." Only then did Blair look up and see Ms. Brittany standing right next to him. Her smile warm but the atmosphere oddly chilly. "Had a good nap, Blair? So good that you forgot where you are." Blair glanced at her, at the peaks and valleys under her blouse, and wondered, is this a teacher? Suddenly, Ms. Brittany grabbed and twisted his ear hard. Then she pointed at the blackboard and barked. "Sleeping in my class, are you? Do you have any idea how important math is? Get up here and solve this problem." Blair, wincing in pain, grabbed at her sleeve and cried, "Ow, ow, ow." When he picked up the chalk, something clicked. Wait a second. He pressed 2 fingers to his temple, deep in thought. This is really bad. On the board was a simple high school math problem. 1 + 2 + 3, all the way up to 100. Ms. Brittany announced, "Blair, take this problem home. I want your answer before class tomorrow. This is your punishment for sleeping in my lesson." The students below snickered and jeered. That problem's impossible for a moron like him. Even with 3 days and nights, he'd never solve it. Math is super important, and that Blair guy has zero talent. No chance. But Blair just gave a faint smirk and let out a soft, HMPH. Even Ms. Brittany was surprised. Why does he look so confident? Like some experienced scholar or something? Calmly, Blair walked up and wrote the answer on the board. Ms. Brittany covered her mouth in shock. No way. After finishing, Blair asked, "Ms. Brittany, can I use the restroom?" She blinked and nodded. Sure." The students buzzed with disbelief. He actually wrote an answer? Must have just guessed a random number to show off. But Ms. Brittany quickly shut them down. "No, Blair's answer is." She paused, then declared, "Absolutely correct." The class exploded into chaos. Even students in the hallway could hear the uproar. What? No way. Even Ms. Brittany would need a couple hours to solve that. Meanwhile, Blair's face was twisted with unease. The hard part wasn't the math, it was something else entirely. Wait a second, did I just transmigrate? Self-introduction time. I'm Tran Lak, a high school math teacher who treats math like a religion. After graduation, I dedicated years of my life to teaching. Next year, I was finally due for a promotion. In class, I was that strict but clever teacher. The kind who says, "Copy it down before I erase it," and makes the whole class scramble. But now, I've transmigrated. My emotions were in turmoil. All I did was close my eyes for a second while proctoring an exam. And now I'm in another world? That's not logical. What is this? A comic book? Newton, get over here and explain this. Newton, how is this my problem? To summarize, I seem to have transmigrated into a new world. Inside the body of a student named Blair. Problem is, this Blair was famous for being a dunce at math. And from what I've just seen, this world puts a huge emphasis on math, but their actual math level is primitive. The question from earlier? Even elementary schoolers back home would solve it in seconds. But here, everyone was painstakingly adding numbers one at a time. My eyes lit up. If I can't figure out how to return home just yet, then maybe I'm the most mathematically gifted person in this entire world. Tran Lak, you might just reach the peak of life through math, in another world. Blair walked away humming a cheerful tune. La 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 tilde. But as he was strolling along, someone suddenly crashed into him from the front. They both tumbled to the ground. Blair winced and quickly stood up. "I'm sorry, are you okay?" The girl was still lying there. Blair panicked and reached out to check on her. Then immediately jumped back like he'd touched a live wire. Holy crap, holy crap, holy crap. Important things must be said 3 times. Still red-faced, Blair extended a hand to help the girl up. Avoiding eye contact, cheeks flushed, he apologized sincerely. "I'm really sorry, I wasn't paying attention." The girl's name was Isabella. She clutched her skirt and screamed. "You again?" Blair blinked. "Wait, you know me?" Isabella snapped. "Of course I know you. You crashed into me at the freshman welcome ceremony. Remember? Same stupid pose and everything. You turned me into a laughingstock in front of the whole school. I'll never forget that face of yours." She exploded. "And now you're pulling this again? Lurking around to ambush me, pervert. Creep." Not even an hour into being Blair. And he was already paying for this body's past misdeeds. Confused and overwhelmed, Blair thought, what is happening? Isn't she the one who ran into me? I should be the one upset here. Trying to stay calm, Blair explained, "Miss, First of all, I wasn't ambushing you, and objectively speaking, you bumped into me, not the other way around. Enough, she shrieked. A heavy silence fell. Suddenly, shish, the air sizzled. She wasn't playing anymore. She began chanting, "Oh scattered fire elements of the world, heed my call." Blair stared, stunned. Wait, she's really casting magic? But nothing happened right away. And he sighed in relief. Phew, just another case of magical delusions. Must be puberty acting up. Feeling bold, Blair decided to tease her. Oh, so you think you're the only one who knows magic? Watch this. He danced around ridiculously. Dark Lord Gunara, hula hula hey. But then, whoosh, the flames ignited, and Blair finally understood what fear felt like. The fire roared in Isabella's palm. She wound up. The blaze surged. Take this, you little freak. Blair gasped. Holy, a flash of light. Is this it? Am I going to die in the first chapter of my transmigration? He froze for a moment. How could I forget? If I've reincarnated into a world with magic, then this kind of thing is totally normal. Blair looked utterly drained, his face lifeless as he stared at the author. Excuse me, but what am I supposed to do when I get Isekai'D and someone immediately lobs a fireball at me? Isabella, however, remained as fervent as ever. She gathered her magic again with astonishing speed. She charged at him like a rampaging bull. You rude little thing, prepare to be punished. As death loomed just seconds away, Blair suddenly had an idea. Well, if it's come to this. He instantly switched gears, putting on the air of a true gentleman who knows when to bow and yield. My sincerest apologies, my lady, he said with a graceful bow. I was terribly rude just now. Please, forgive me for my offense. Isabella skidded to a halt at his sudden change in attitude. Her eyes widened in surprise, the flames in her hand flickering out. Huh? Though she pulled back her power, she still wasn't ready to let him off so easily. Don't think a simple apology is enough. But in the blink of an eye, Blair had vanished. Huh? Isabella growled. That guy ran off again. So fast. Blair ran, panting heavily. Huff, huff. What the hell is going on in this world? Magic and science coexist? Suddenly, a sharp pain struck his head. His heart skipped a beat. He clutched his head in agony. Why? Why does it hurt so much? His consciousness began to fade. It was a rainy day. Long ago, when Blair was just a child. He cried as the rain mixed with his tears. Dad, sobbing uncontrollably. He called again. Dad, all he and his mother received was a notification. The general had sacrificed himself for his country. A modest, unadorned wooden box was handed to them. Madam, please accept our condolences. From then on, mother and son depended on each other to survive. Life was hard, mercilessly so. Whispers and sneers followed them everywhere. Isn't her family supposed to be nobility? What kind of noble has to take on odd jobs after her husband dies? One day, Blair came home excitedly holding a letter. Mom, I got accepted into St. Donatus Academy. Before he left, his mother said gently, Blair, make sure you study hard at St. Donatus. Don't worry, Mom, I'm a grown-up now. She watched him go, eyes filled with emotion. My little boy, he's grown up already. At the academy, Blair worked tirelessly. He read countless books, took on every task without complaint. Move faster, don't dawdle. If you keep this up, I'll kick you out of this dorm. Still, he clenched his fists. I will bring my family name back to glory. But reality was cruel. Blair had no magical talent whatsoever. His classmates snickered. Look at him, working so hard, and he can't even summon a spark. Not even a flicker of fire affinity. No magical aptitude at all. He doesn't even know the simplest fireball spell. Malicious voices surrounded him. Calls himself a noble? He's poorer than my family's maid. Useless in both magic and math. Bet his family couldn't even afford a tutor. If not for the noble title his dead father left him, he wouldn't even be allowed into this academy. Brown hair and brown eyes like that? He's got to be a half-blood mutt from some backwater town. Blair sat there, broken. I'm sorry, Mom, Dad, maybe someone like me, worthless in both magic and academics, really is just trash. That's when Jasmine appeared and pulled him back to reality. Blair? Blair, are you okay? He opened his eyes, still dazed. I think her name is Jasmine. She's my classmate. How did she find me here? She reached out to him. Next period is magic theory. Are you alright? Yeah, I'm fine. I didn't expect anyone would actually care about someone like me. He took her hand, stood up, and smiled gratefully. Thanks, Jasmine. Deep inside, he whispered to himself. So this is my past. From here on out, it's up to me now. In class, the teacher lectured passionately. As we all know, there are 4 elemental forces in this world. All magic stems from these four. Blair listened carefully. So that's how it works. This world divides people into mages and commoners based on talent. Both magic and mathematics are vital here. And this academy, it's one of the most prestigious. The teacher continued with enthusiasm. There are four major elements: earth, fire, wind, and water. Mages use spells and gestures to control these elements through spiritual force. But casting magic also requires talent. Before he could finish, the bell rang. Ringing, ringing, ringing. Students cheered and packed up noisily. Finally, that old guy just reads off the textbook. So boring. The teacher sighed, gathering his notes. Suddenly, Blair stood up. Professor. Oh, young Blair, the teacher said kindly. Another question? Yes, Blair said earnestly. Is it really true that without magical talent, someone can't cast even the tiniest spell? The professor's face turned grim. Blair, you've asked this many times. The answer hasn't changed. His voice grew somber. Without magical talent, you can't sense the elements, let alone summon them. Not even a spark. Laughter erupted behind Blair. There goes our magic genius, Blair again. Always the most serious in class. What's the point? No talent means no magic. Keep dreaming, Blair. Suddenly, a hand rested on his shoulder. Even if you can't graduate, it's fine. It was Toby. He turned and saw the only person who had ever truly treated Blair as a friend. If it comes to that, you can work at my family's estate. If I have a bun, half of it's yours. Blair stood frozen. Toby, he's genuinely kind to Blair. A real friend. Toby gave a wide grin, waved goodbye, and said, I'm off now. Bye-bye. Blair replied with a small wave. He noticed Jasmine still watching him. Jasmine, is there something you wanted to say? She stammered, flustered. No, not at all. He raised a brow. Jasmine, she seems really concerned about me today. She turned and hurried off. Miss Brittany said she wants to see you after class in her office. I got it, thanks, Jasmine. He remained alone in the classroom. Thoughtful. She's a strange girl. I ran into her a few times today. It feels like she wants to say something. Then his mood dropped again. Sigh, I may know math from my old world. But in this one, without magic talent, I'm just a joke. He looked at his hand. Am I really destined to be a muggle in this world? Whatever, let's just try again. He stretched out his empty palm and recited. Oh, flames scattered throughout this world. Heed my call, gather before me. He focused. Fireball. Nothing. He smiled bitterly. Why'd I even hope anymore? But then, thin wisps of smoke began to swirl around him. His eyes widened. He clenched his fist. Flames burst into life in his hand, crackling and roaring with power. Whoosh, whoosh. Blair stared in astonishment at the blazing flame, fireball spell? But he couldn't believe it. No way. Wasn't this body supposed to have zero magical talent? He took a deep breath and calmed himself. Then he tried again. Fire release. Fireball spell. Again. Little fireball. Come out and play. It seems certain now. He really could cast magic. He muttered to himself. This fireball has no restraint at all. Then he wondered. Could it be that being transmigrated suddenly unlocked my mind or something? Suddenly, he remembered. Crap, I forgot to go to Miss Brittany's office. A little while later, he knocked on the door. Miss Brittany's voice rang out. Come in. As soon as he opened the door, he began. Miss Brittany, I'm Tran Lack. Sorry, I'm late. But the sight in front of him made his face flush red. It looked normal, but to him it was anything but. Awkwardly, he greeted her. Miss Brittany? She smiled. It's student Blair. You finally came. And yet, Blair's eyes were fixated on Miss Brittany's backside. His heart pounding. What was worse, he was staring intensely, and his heart wouldn't stop racing. Total pervert. Miss Brittany sat down and said sternly. Please don't mind me. I have a habit of standing while doing math. Blair quickly replied. It's fine. I'm just a little late. You called me here because? Miss Brittany waved her hand. Blair, have a seat. He sat down at the table, where a stack of papers had already been laid out. I prepared paper and pen for you. She said. Try solving this problem. The question. Calculate the sum from 1 to 79. Then she turned and walked away. I'll step out for a bit. No rush, take your time. Suddenly, Blair blurted out the answer, making her jump. 3,160. She quickly turned around. What did you say? Blair calmly repeated. I said the answer to the question is 3.160. Miss Brittany rushed over, swish, and grabbed his shoulders. She exclaimed. How is that possible? Even I had to calculate for quite a while. Her sharp eyes locked onto him. Could it be you've done this problem before? No, that can't be it. The number 79 was picked randomly. Blair, a little scared, asked, "Do you really want to know?" Miss Brittany's attitude flipped instantly. Now full of excitement, "Student Blair, are you willing to tell me? I'm really curious." Blair scratched his head. "Of course I'll tell you." But he thought to himself, "So Miss Brittany's actually kind of innocent. Huh?" Putting on a scholarly air, he said, "I've seen your method before. You just add each number one at a time." He continued, "Doing that not only takes a long time but also easily leads to mistakes. But your accuracy deserves praise. In the previous lesson too, the math level in this magical world is truly, unbearably low." Miss Brittany asked, confused, "But isn't that the only way?" Blair smirked, "I'm afraid you're mistaken, Miss Brittany." He picked up the pen and started writing as he explained, "There's another method for this problem. First, we notice a pattern," he explained, "the first and last numbers, the second and the second last, and so on, all pairs add up to 80. Blair leaned into his role. "So Miss Brittany, how many such pairs do you think there are?" Miss Brittany got swept up in the excitement and immediately stood up. Raising her hand, "I get it, there are 39 pairs. Blair cheered, "Bingo, very clever. Miss Brittany, please sit down." "Ah, sorry, teacher habit," she chuckled. "Bingo, please sit, teacher habit." Blair continued, "Now the problem becomes a simple multiplication. Just don't forget that 40, which doesn't have a pair, still needs to be added." He concluded, "Using this method, I think even Miss Brittany could quickly reach the answer." Miss Brittany stared like she'd just discovered a miracle. Unbelievable, there's such a clever method? Just then, inspiration struck her. "Not only that, I think this method can be taken a step further." Blair went on to explain arithmetic series to her. He wrote out the formula and explained, "Exactly right, Miss Brittany. An arithmetic series is a sequence where each term differs from the previous one by a fixed non-zero number, called the common difference. So, the sum can be described by a simple formula." Miss Brittany blinked, stunned. Blair waved a hand in front of her. "Miss Brittany?" Then he muttered, "Can basic math we learned in elementary school really shock the scholars of this world so much?" She asked seriously, "Did you come up with this solution on your own?" Blair answered sheepishly, "You could say that. It's pretty convenient to think that way." He lied because he figured even if I said it was Gauss, she wouldn't know who that is anyway. Suddenly, Miss Brittany grabbed his hand. "Student Blair, you're a genius." She looked mesmerized. "As long as you're willing to keep studying, your future has no limits." Her gesture was a bit over the top, and Blair's face flushed. "Miss Brittany, she realized it too and quickly pulled back. "Sorry, I got too excited." Clearing her throat, "Ahem," she eagerly suggested, "Student Blair, would you like to become a great mathematician?" Without hesitation, Blair beamed, "Nope, I want to become a great mage." The mood dropped like a roller coaster. Miss Brittany deflated. "Oh," but even that rejection didn't shake her. She leaned closer and tried to coax him. "But don't you know how gifted you are in math? This is a blessing from the goddess of wisdom. You can't waste it. And more importantly, Blair, as far as I know, you don't have any magical talent at all." She even grabbed his hand again and declared loudly, "Becoming a mathematician also comes with high status and great benefits. No matter what, your current path shouldn't be magic, it should be mathematics." Blair firmly pulled his hand away and said resolutely, "Sorry, Miss Brittany, I still want to become a mage. With the math level of this world," he thought, "I could just toss out a few advanced theories and become a top mathematician with ease. But then again, it'd all be borrowed glory, just repackaging the achievements of mathematicians from another world." Clenching his fist, he thought, on the other hand, magic in this world, its appeal is far greater than some empty title like mathematician. Then Miss Brittany spoke again. "If you're so determined to become a mage, then?" She glanced at him sideways. "Student Blair, would you be willing to make a bet with me?" Blair asked. "What kind of bet?" Miss Brittany explained. "In a few days, your class will have a magic exam. This exam will directly determine whether you can stay at St. Donatus Academy." Blair nodded. "Yes, I know. If we fail, we'll be expelled." She emphasized, "If you truly want to become a mage, then you must pass this exam." Blair seemed to understand. Miss Brittany held up a calendar. "Let's treat it like a wager." Then she stated the terms. "If you pass the exam, I won't try to persuade you anymore. But if you fail, I'll use my authority as a teacher to request special permission for you to stay at the academy, on the condition that you give up magic and study mathematics with me." She looked at him. "Well, Student Blair, what do you think?" Even though Miss Brittany felt a little guilty, she still did it. "Sorry, Blair," she thought, "for someone with no magical talent, you're bound to lose this bet." And yet, Blair accepted without hesitation. "Deal, I keep my word." Blair walked with his eyes closed, like he couldn't be bothered to look at the world. That Brittany girl really was unbelievably stubborn. Still whining even now, he couldn't help but recall that humiliating moment of hers. "Classmate Blair," she had said, "don't forget the deal between us." Blair held his head. "I should really go study magic instead." Suddenly, a bright orange blur shot toward him. A familiar scene played out once again. Thud. The impact made Blair stumble back, and then crash to the ground. This exact scenario, this exact sensation, half a second of silence. Blair froze in place, his face pale as he realized Isabella was now sitting right on top of him. The air turned heavy and dark. Without even asking what happened, Isabella leapt up and started pummeling Blair. "You shameless pervert," she shouted. Muttering under her breath, she began chanting, "Oh fire elements scattered across the world, heed my call and gather before me." Flames ignited, fireball spell. But before she could cast, Blair had already bolted. Isabella shrieked furiously, "Where is he? Damn it, how does that shameless guy run so fast?" Blair, from a safe distance, thought, "If I didn't run fast, I'd be ashes by now." In the office, Ms. Brittany looked at Isabella and asked, "What's wrong? You've been scowling ever since you got here." Isabella began to complain. "Ms. Brittany, I ran into a pervert twice at school today." Ms. Brittany gasped, "A pervert? In our school?" Then chuckled, "But if he ran into you, then that pervert's seriously unlucky." Isabella huffed, "If it happens again, I will burn him to ashes with a fireball spell." Ms. Brittany couldn't help but cover her mouth and laugh. "That's so you, Isabella." Then Isabella slapped a stack of papers down with a bang. "Enough about that, Ms. Brittany, I've finished the math problems you gave me." She proudly put her hands on her hips and laughed. "Yah ha ha ha, took me just half an afternoon. That's fast, right?" Ms. Brittany looked over the answers and said, "Your speed at solving consecutive number sums is catching up to mine." Isabella, praise received, but then came the comparison. "Indeed, you're fast," Ms. Brittany said, "but Blair solved this in under a minute." Isabella froze. "Blair? Who's that? Never heard of him. How could he be that fast?" "No way." Ms. Brittany nodded. "It's true. He used a method I'd never seen before. Let me show you." Ms. Brittany carefully explained. "First, find the sum pattern of the numbers. Then multiply it by the variable." Basically, he simplified it all using a fixed formula, a basic arithmetic progression. Isabella was stunned, then her whole body trembled. "So, it could be solved like that? And that Blair guy came up with it?" Ms. Brittany smiled gently. "Yes, honestly, I was shocked too. Who would have thought our academy had such a math prodigy?" Isabella's pride flared. "Ms. Brittany, I want to meet this Blair guy." Her face was glowing with excitement, so much she was practically drooling. Ms. Brittany gave in with a sigh. "All right then. Classroom." Bang! Isabella kicked the classroom door open. Then she shouted arrogantly, "Hey, who in here is named Blair? Tell him to come out. I want to see him." Toby, sweating and stammering, said, "You senior, about that." Before he could finish, Blair pinched Toby's thigh from under the desk, signaling him to stay quiet. Then he put a finger to his lips. "Shush." Toby had no idea what was going on with Blair's weird behavior, but reluctantly played along. "Blair just left a moment ago." He lied. Isabella huffed and pouted, again with the "just left." She turned to leave but paused at the door. "When he's back, tell him I've got business with him. He better come find me." Toby forced a smile. "Why yeah, sure." She slammed the door shut behind her. Blair crawled out from under the desk. The entire class stared at him in stunned silence. He looked around in confusion, then tugged at Toby's sleeve. "Toby, why's everyone staring at me like that?" Toby placed a heavy hand on Blair's shoulder. Face serious. "Blair, be honest with me, what exactly happened between you and Senior Isabella?" Blair's face turned ghostly pale. Isabella? That girl just now was named Isabella?" A cold chill filled the room. Toby glared at him. "Blair, aside from reading books and working part-time, do you seriously not know anything else? Do you have any idea who Isabella really is?" Blair's face twisted awkwardly. So, who is she, exactly?" Toby leaned in close to Blair's ear and whispered, "Do you know how many people are chasing after Senior Isabella in this academy? If they find out you've offended their goddess, they definitely won't let you off easy." Blair waved it off, replying, "This is St. Donatus Academy, we're not in some lawless place. They can't just do whatever they want." But Toby gave him a weird look. "You do know we're in St. Donatus Academy, right? Then tell me, where is it located?" Blair was a bit confused by his tone but still answered, "On Baker Street." "And Baker Street is in?" Toby pressed. "Pow City," Blair replied. At that, Toby let out a long sigh, as if holding it in for ages. Just now, I thought you were pretending to be clueless. Turns out, you really are that clueless. Isabella's father is the Lord of Pao City. Cold sweat broke out on Blair's back. What the hell? I'm doomed for real. Thinking of Isabella's father, Blair panicked and turned to Toby. Do you think, if I go apologize to her right now, she'll forgive me? Suddenly, a voice called out from behind, making both of them jump. You dared to mess with Senior Isabella? Looks like you're not ready to survive in this academy. It was Bard. He stepped forward with his usual sneer, cracking his knuckles as a group of lackeys followed behind. Then again, makes sense. With that useless magic of yours, you probably won't last much longer here anyway. Useless losers, he mocked. Blair recognized him immediately, Bard, the thug who loved picking on him. Toby snapped, Bard, you looking for trouble or something? Meanwhile, Blair sank into thought. To be fair, what he said isn't wrong. Though magic was a core subject at St. Donatus, there were still other fields, mathematics, history, philosophy. Even if I can't become a mage, I could still become a scholar, right? Scholars are respected in this kingdom too. But reality hit. As one of the top academies in the kingdom, daily magic practice was non-negotiable. Every second-year student had to pass the magic proficiency test, or get expelled. And the magic exam is super basic. Blair thought, almost everyone passes it, you just need to go through the motions. But that didn't apply to Blair. He was a true anomaly, utterly devoid of magical talent. He'd accepted that the upcoming test might mark the end of his academic journey. No wonder Brittany had used it as the basis for their bet. Bard, who had been ignored for too long, suddenly slammed the table and shouted, Hey, are you even listening to me? Sparks flew between their eyes as Bard pointed at Blair and sneered. You filthy mutt with no dad. Toby's face darkened. He growled. Bard, with a cold glare, he asked, You trying to pick a fight? Bard scoffed. This doesn't concern you, Toby. Toby stepped forward without hesitation. Blair's my friend. His business is my business. If it's a fight you want, then let's go. Finally a chance for me to use this body for something useful. Bard couldn't argue back. He glared and grumbled. Fine, I'll remember this. He turned to leave with his gang, puffing himself up and muttering like a wannabe tough guy. I'll settle this with you losers next time. Blair hadn't said a word the whole time. Watching Toby, warmth filled his chest. This chubby guy might not look reliable, but in key moments, he's really loyal. A true brother. With a grin, Blair slung an arm around Toby's shoulders and said, If Isabella comes to give me trouble, you'll have my back too, right? Without missing a beat, Toby patted his chest and declared, Of course, when that happens, I'll make sure to beat you up as gently as possible. Blair immediately turned to stone. Seriously? A few days later, the magic proficiency test began. This time, the content was a basic spell, Fireball. Students who failed would lose their right to stay at the academy. Professor Anthony addressed the class. Fireball is the most fundamental of spells. I believe every student should be able to pass this easily. He pointed at a stone target and explained, Stand behind this line and use Fireball to hit that target. Looking at his roster, he called out, Bard, you're up first. Bard strutted to the front, raised a hand, and began his incantation. O scattered fire elements of the world, heed my call and gather, Fireball. A flame swirled into shape, and a glowing fireball formed in his palm. With a smug look, he launched it. Professor Anthony nodded. Very good, Bard, you pass. One by one, students passed the test. Linda, pass. Next, the professor announced. Bard turned to Blair, raising a hand to mock him. Enjoy your last moments in this academy. Blair. Toby's blood boiled. Shut your damn mouth, Bard. Next, Toby. Professor Anthony called. Toby hesitated, then stepped forward and chanted, O scattered fire elements of the world, heed my call and gather. His face twisted with effort as he summoned a small, flickering fireball, far weaker than Bard's. Still, he hurled it at the target. Fireball, he shouted. Though unimpressive, the spell hit the target. Professor Anthony said kindly, Toby, barely passable, but still, you pass. Toby threw his arms in the air, cheering. Yes. He didn't notice the professor's tired eyes. Such a tiny flame, poor kid. I'll let it slide. But when Professor Anthony turned the page to the next student's profile, his face grew serious. Blair, he has zero magical aptitude. He can't even summon a fireball. Poor kid, I really don't want to embarrass him in front of everyone. After a brief pause, the kind-hearted professor made his decision. I hereby declare that all students in Class 5, Year 2, have passed the magic proficiency test. The exam is over. But of course, someone just had to ruin it. Wait a minute. The professor turned to the voice. already bracing himself. Yes, Bard? Bard narrowed his eyes and pointed directly at Blair. Professor Anthony, did you forget someone? Blair hasn't taken the test yet. When Bard called him out like that, Blair didn't respond, remaining silent. Seeing that, Professor Anthony awkwardly asked, well then, Blair, do you want to take the test? Bard and his gang immediately erupted like a pack of barking dogs. No way. Seriously? Blair, you're a student at a magic academy, right? Don't tell me you can't even cast a single spell? Ha, someone like you deserves to be expelled anyway. Why don't you save yourself the embarrassment and just give up? Even some girls nearby came over, holding hands and giggling. Come on, let's go watch. The magic deadweight from Class 5 is about to publicly humiliate himself. Their chatter drew Brittany's attention as well, her eyes showing concern. Just then, a hand rested on Blair's shoulder. It was Toby. Maybe just let it go. Toby advised gently. They just want to laugh at you. Blair stayed calm. Then, rolling up his sleeves, he firmly declared, I want to give it a shot. The Bard gang looked stunned. They hadn't expected him to actually dare step up. Is he serious? After a brief pause, the group exploded into laughter. Did I hear that right? He really thinks a miracle's gonna happen? What's that guy thinking? No magical talent at all. And he still wants to get humiliated? Guess he still hasn't accepted that he's a complete failure. Brittany bit her lip, clearly worried. Professor Anthony raised his voice. Enough. Everyone quiet down. He turned back to Blair and asked one last time. Blair, are you sure you want to proceed with the test? With resolve, Blair nodded. Yes, Professor Anthony, I want to try. Anthony sighed, but smiled warmly. No matter the outcome, your courage is admirable. You may begin. Standing in front of the target board, Blair thought to himself, I could cast the spell silently and without gestures. But, let's put on a show. He began reciting the incantation. O fire elements scattered across the world, answer my summons, gather before me. He raised both hands forward. A wave of power burst out from him, kicking up dust all around. People shielded their faces from the gust. Blair shouted, fireball. But nothing appeared, only air. The Bard gang froze for a moment. Then they burst into hysterical laughter. Absolutely priceless. But then Blair silenced them all. Because in the next instant, a massive fireball erupted in front of him, WHOOM, and shot toward the target board. Boom! The board was instantly incinerated. Bard broke out in a cold sweat. Toby clutched his head in shock. Professor Anthony and Brittany both stared wide-eyed. Even the crowd, expecting a disaster, stood with mouths agape. The board was now nothing but a charred mess. Anthony finally announced, half in disbelief. Blair, passes. Bard staggered back, mumbling, no, that's impossible. Toby, overjoyed, tackled Blair with a hug. You sly devil, you've been hiding your skills all along. But their celebration was cut short as Professor Anthony said, Blair, come with me for a moment. Scene transitions to a private room. Professor Anthony looked doubtful. You're saying, you just kept practicing every day with the instructions? And one day the fireball spell just worked? Blair put on a naive face and replied, yes, that's right. Anthony nodded slowly. Magic is a gift granted by the gods. Our ancestors developed chants and gestures to connect with the elements and cast spells. Those without even a hint of magical talent are considered abandoned by the gods. Blair quietly listened. To see someone like that suddenly blessed by the gods again, it's unheard of. Anthony rested a hand on Blair's shoulder, smiling. And the fireball you cast today, its speed and power were excellent. Blair, you have the potential to become a truly great mage. Blair groaned inwardly. First they tell me to study math. Now they want me to become a wizard? Out loud, he said politely, thank you, Professor. When I first arrived in this world, I was fascinated by magic. But lately, more than anything, I just want to return to the world I came from. Anthony blinked. World you came from? What do you mean by that? Blair? Realizing his slip-up, Blair quickly covered. Oh, no, sorry, Professor. I've just been reading too many magical legends lately. That was just me rambling. Internally, crap, I said the quiet part out loud again. But the professor simply chuckled. I see. Well, it looks like you've been putting in extraordinary effort. That world you mentioned, maybe it was from the tales of the archmages. Blair stroked his chin. Archmage, isn't that the highest level of mage? He recalled reading a legend. There once was an archmage so powerful. They could tear open space and travel to another world. But of course, that was only a myth. The gods created just one world, there were no others. Blair's eyes lit up. Space magic, ripping open dimensions. An archmage who traveled to another world. Grabbing Professor Anthony by both shoulders, He shouted, "Professor Anthony!" Anthony flinched. "Blair?" With burning determination, Blair declared, "I will become an archmage." Back at the familiar study desk. After the magic exam, the academy finally granted a rare few days of rest. But Blair remained diligently buried in his books. Over the past few days, he had scoured nearly every book on magic available in the academy's library. According to his research, mages in this world are classified into 7 ranks: novice, intermediate, advanced, great mage, archmage, grand archmage, and at the pinnacle, the Saint Archmage, a legendary figure whose immense magical power exists only in ancient records. Never witnessed firsthand, under the dim glow of the oil lamp, Blair reflected. Many books mention that Saint Archmages could use spatial magic, ripping open space to travel to other worlds. In that possibility, Blair saw hope. While most modern mages dismissed the existence of other worlds and considered spatial magic a mere myth. For someone who had experienced transmigration like Blair, spatial magic might very well be real. In fact, it could be his only hope of ever returning home. Yet he couldn't help but feel disheartened. Professor Anthony didn't believe in spatial magic. It was unlikely he could learn anything more from him. Just then, someone knocked on the desk. "Blair, you're still here reading?" a voice asked. It was the library supervisor. Blair broke into a cold sweat. "Shoot, it's him. You'd better get to work. This library doesn't pay loafers to sit around," the supervisor barked. Blair scratched his head with an awkward grin. "Sorry, sir, I'll get started right away." By the time dawn finally broke, Blair's back ached, legs throbbed, and every muscle in his body screamed in protest. It had taken him all night to finish cleaning. Who knew working in the library could be so exhausting? When he arrived at the classroom and pushed the door open, the atmosphere was strangely silent, not the usual noisy chaos. His classmates, who usually looked down on him, were now abuzz with conversation. That fireball Blair cast during the exam was the biggest I've ever seen, even bigger than Professor Anthony's. Could he have been hiding his real strength all along? Blair stepped into the room, but the chatter didn't stop. "Now that I look closer, Blair's actually kinda handsome, isn't he? You think Isabella's interested in him?" He was stunned. "Wait, why is she here?" Isabella sat with one leg propped up on a desk, completely at ease. Blair tried to hypnotize himself. "You don't see me. I'm not here." He was about to quietly turn and leave when Isabella suddenly shouted, "So you're Blair, the one Brittany mentioned." He spun around quickly. "Senior, please let me explain, it's all a misunderstanding." But she pointed straight at him. "You dare say another word, you pervert." Her rage flared so intensely that Blair was at a loss. "Senior, you're not even supposed to be." But Isabella didn't care. She began chanting a spell. "Oh, fire elements scattered across the world, heed my call, gather here." She was casting a fireball. Blair instinctively raised both hands to shield his chest. Oh crap, but nothing happened. Turns out, Brittany had stepped in just in time to stop her. "Isabella," Brittany scolded, "how could you use magic inside a classroom?" Flustered, Isabella protested, "Miss Brittany, listen, he's the one who—" "That's enough, Isabella," Brittany cut her off. Then she turned to Blair. "Blair, I was just looking for you. Come with me to the office for a talk." She paused. "Isabella, you come too." Blair internally groaned. "What am I supposed to do here? I'm just a victim." With a loud slam, Isabella shut the classroom door behind her. Silence fell again. Bard, sitting nearby, paled. What the hell is happening with that useless Blair lately? Scene shift, Brittany's office. Blair bowed his head toward Isabella. "My unreasonable actions made you uncomfortable. Senior, I sincerely apologize and hope you can forgive me." Brittany, smiling warmly, chimed in. "Everything's been cleared up. I believe in Blair's character. He probably just made a careless mistake. Let's not hold it against him." "All right, Isabella?" Isabella flushed with embarrassment but reluctantly replied. "Since Miss Brittany has spoken for Blair, I guess I'll forgive him." Then Brittany turned to Blair. "By the way, I watched your magic exam a few days ago. Your performance exceeded all my expectations. I admit you won the bet, and I won't try to stop you anymore. However," she suddenly leaned in close. "Blair, can you tell me, how did you do it? I've never seen someone without magical talent regain it again." Caught off guard, Blair quickly deflected. "I guess I just got lucky." "Oh, Miss Brittany, I actually had a question I wanted to ask you." Seeing that pressing him was futile, Brittany relented. "All right, if you don't want to answer, I won't force you. Ask your question. If I know the answer, I'll tell you." Blair didn't hesitate. "To connect with elemental magic, is it absolutely necessary to use incantations and hand gestures?" Isabella snorted. "What kind of dumb question is that? Even a kid knows incantations and gestures are the only way to channel elemental magic. But Blair pressed on. Are all mages the same? Is there really no exception? Brittany replied seriously. No matter how powerful a mage is, they must use incantations and gestures to connect with magic. The difference is, they understand the elements better and can cast faster. It's said that magic was a gift from the gods. The gods taught our ancestors to use incantations and gestures to channel magic. And that knowledge has been passed down through generations. The only ones who could possibly cast magic without either would be the gods themselves. Isabella rolled her eyes. Miss Brittany, you don't need to seriously answer such a ridiculous question. But Blair stared at his own hands. Puzzled. Could it be because I'm not from this world? That the gods here have no control over me? Blair bowed his head, listening carefully as Miss Brittany lectured him. This is the most basic knowledge of magic. She said kindly, if you want to become a mage, you'd better memorize the magical theories in the books. But then she added with a smile. Actually, the reason I called you here today is something more important. She pulled out a rolled-up scroll. Blair's eyes filled with question marks as he looked at it. What is this? From behind him, Isabella stepped forward, folding her arms with a disdainful sneer. You don't even know this? It's the academic journal. The place where all the kingdom's most important scholarly papers are published. Blair unrolled the scroll and glanced over it. Isabella's eyes suddenly widened in shock as she too looked at the scroll. This is, she whispered, covering her face in disbelief, pointing at the paper in Blair's hands. Yes, Miss Brittany said, her smile blooming like a flower, eyes narrowing with pride. From the summation formula you mentioned last time, I deduced the conclusion and wrote it up as a scholarly paper. Moreover, since the formula was inspired by your idea, it was only right to include your name as a co-author. Isabella bit her lip in astonishment as she read the paper's content. While Blair stood nearby, wearing a gloomy expression, whether his name was signed or not made no difference, he thought it would be more practical to get some money. The meager wages he earned daily working in the library barely kept his stomach from growling. Suddenly, Miss Brittany stood up, as if remembering something important. Oh right, I almost forgot this. She handed him a thick pouch overflowing with coins. This is the publication fee, 50 silver coins. It's not much compared to the honor of academic recognition, but I think you deserve it. Blair's jaw dropped as he stared at the heavy pouch in her hands. Real money? Wow, this was VIP-level generosity, compared to his puny 2 silver coins a day from library work. This was a fortune. He raised one hand, pretending to decline, while the other clutched at his robe as if to say, no, come on. Fortune is here. In his mind, he joked to himself, maybe that's not quite right, half of this belongs to Miss Brittany. But Miss Brittany simply smiled innocently and actually opened the pouch, dividing the coins into 2 piles. Alright, I'll take half, she thought to herself. Blair's so honest, I can't let him get hurt. Seeing Blair's disappointed face, she smiled brightly and pushed the other half toward him. Here, 25 silver coins for you. Blair froze, as if turned to stone. Overwhelmed by regret. Darn it, he thought, I only tried to be polite. How did this end up serious? My head is spinning. One careless word cost him 25 silver coins. He felt like slapping himself twice. Mom, I want to run away from home. Take me far away from this beautiful world. Blair muttered, tears streaming as he rubbed his forehead. Suddenly, he remembered something and his eyes widened. Wait, Miss Brittany, every paper published in the academic journal really gets 50 silver coins as a publication fee? Miss Brittany, crossing her legs and resting her chin thoughtfully on her hand, replied, I've never really paid attention. But since your paper got published, 50 silver coins sounds about right. Blair beamed, stroking his chin. Well then, Miss Brittany, I've been thinking lately. He wrote a string of mathematical formulas on the board and used a ruler to point and explain. I've been pondering a sequence from the second term onwards, where the ratio of each term to the previous one is a constant, a geometric sequence. So, the sum of the sequence. Shouldn't there be a unified formula for that? Brittany's eyes widened as if thunder had struck. You're talking about the louse puzzle? Blair scratched his head, puzzled. The louse puzzle? She nodded seriously. It's a math question posed by the philosopher-mathematician Laus. Laus had 7 wives. Each wife had 7 bags. Each bag held 7 cats. Each cat had 7 kittens. Blair confirmed. Right, the terms in the question aren't many. You can add them all up to get the answer. But if there were more terms, we'd need a unified formula to help solve the problem. Miss Brittany smiled brightly and stood up, looking at Blair with excitement. So your idea is that a single formula can solve the louse puzzle? Blair nodded. It's just a rough idea for now. Brittany's eyes sparkled as she eagerly grasped Blair's hands. Ready to get to work. Alright, let's deduce it right now. Tick-tock, tick-tock. The clock struck 1:55. Time passed, tick-tock, tick-tock, until 2:25. 30 minutes had flown by. Isabella, sitting on a chair, was snoring peacefully until Brittany's excited voice startled her awake. Blair, it's unbelievable, Brittany exclaimed, full of excitement and enthusiasm. Squeezing Blair's hand, we found a formula that can solve the louse puzzle. Your mathematical talent is truly unmatched. Won't you join me in studying math further? Isabella smiled and placed a hand on Blair's shoulder. Half joking, Blair, I never knew you had a knack for math. Did you really come up with all this? Blair's face darkened, voice a little cold. You really want to know? Isabella blushed, pursing her lips. Of course, you can't lie. Blair just grinned proudly, pointing a finger at Isabella teasingly. There's no such thing as a natural genius. I just study math while everyone else is asleep. Isabella gaped at the radiant Blair. Oh, is that how it is? And so, Tranlach's geometric formula sent shockwaves through everyone once again, while his little plan was steadily unfolding. The next morning at school, Isabella strolled the hallway, chin propped on her hand, reflecting on what that pervert had said yesterday. It actually made sense, but somehow it felt like he was narrating someone else's story. Suddenly, she gasped, spotting Blair sneaking ahead like a thief. Isn't he a second-year student? Why was he in the third-year dorm? Could this pervert be targeting the senior girls? No way. This time she'd follow him and catch him red-handed. But when Isabella peeked around the corner, Blair had vanished. Hey, where did he go? Elsewhere, under the clear blue sky, sunlight gently streamed through tree branches. Blair stood before a wall several times taller than himself. Looking up, he recalled Toby's words, at the far end of the third-year dorm. There's a stone wall, not too tall. No guards. You can sneak out there. You're not planning anything bad, are you? If something happens, don't say I didn't warn you. Blair gazed at the wall and nodded. This must be the place Toby meant. He suddenly leapt high, over the towering wall with a single bound. Landing lightly, hopefully, what Professor Anthony said was true. Blair recalled, if you want to learn more magic, you can go to the POW Mage Guild. There, you can invite a higher-ranked mage as your teacher. His eyes widened as he looked ahead. Crowds bustled under the bright sun and rows of tall buildings stretched before him. Blair felt a surge of excitement. This was going to be interesting. The bustling street was lively and noisy, with groups of girls chatting in twos and threes. People were coming and going, and many kinds of goods were being sold. Blair walked down the street, hands clasped behind his back, taking it all in with admiration. It really was quite busy here. Finally, Blair arrived at the destination indicated in the instructions. Before him stood a grand and imposing building, its colors a mix of red and gray. Around it were many green trees, and he could even hear the rustling of leaves swaying in the breeze. Blair looked up with his mouth wide open. This was the Mages Guild? Next, Blair took out a black mask from his coat pocket. Putting it on carefully, he reminded himself that caution was paramount, best not to reveal his identity. Inside the Mages Guild, a few people were coming and going with transactions. Blair went straight to the reception desk. Jasmine, seeing a customer arrive, smiled brightly and asked, So, sir, you want to hire a magic advisor, right? That's right, Blair replied. While waiting, he silently assessed the girl in front of him. Wasn't this Jasmine, a classmate? What was she doing here? Working part-time? Jasmine checked for a moment, then quoted the prices. Sir, the fee for hiring a high-level mage is 10 gold coins per month. A mid-level mage costs 5 gold coins. A junior mage only needs 2 gold coins. Which would you like? Hearing this, Blair felt his spirit sink into darkness. This was the misery of the world, wasn't it? 1 gold coin equaled 100 silver coins. And Blair's entire fortune was only 30 silver coins. His face fell, and before Jasmine finished, he turned and began to walk away. Sorry, I think I bothered you. Jasmine quickly called out. Wait, sir, if you have money problems, I think you could get a library card at our guild library. Blair suddenly stopped. He turned back to ask, Library? Jasmine nodded. Yes, our guild's library holds tens of thousands of books on magic. Most magical knowledge can be found there. It's not as good as having a personal magic tutor, but it's completely free. The chance was too good to pass up. Blair licked his lips and raised a hand. All right, that's what I want, a library card. Jasmine extended her hand. Sir, please show me your magic certification. Blair almost spat blood. He collapsed to the ground, looking like he was about to die. He wanted to write the word pathetic on Isabella's feet. Jasmine looked at him in confusion. I thought you were hiring a magic advisor and already a mage yourself. To get a library card, you at least need a junior magic certification. Jasmine then explained, actually, getting a junior magic certification is simple. For example, if you want certification in fire magic, you just have to cast a fireball spell once in front of the certifier. Blair quickly asked, can this be done here? Jasmine hesitated a little. Of course, but I'd advise against it today. The certifier on duty, Andre, is quite strict. I heard his pass rate is below 10%, and over 300 mages have failed under him. Blair thought to himself that since it was hard to sneak out this time, he might as well go for it. He smiled and said, no problem, I'll do it today. Jasmine led Blair to a luxurious room. Andre was sipping tea with an elderly silver-haired man inside. Jasmine politely greeted them and said, Lord Andre, this gentleman wants to take the magic certification. Blair narrowed his eyes, observing the mage Andre. Andre wore a long red mage robe with silver trims, a mid-level fire mage. Andre took a sip of tea and asked indifferently, what's your name? Why the mask? Blair gave his real name. I'm Tran Lak. I wear the mask because I burned my face practicing fireball spells a few days ago. The elderly man looked surprised. You burned your own face? Your fireball must be no joke. Andre put down his cup and sneered. Tran Lak, what a strange name. At your age, coming for certification only now, you'll never go beyond junior mage. Jasmine smiled and gestured invitingly. Lord Andre, shall we go to the testing room? Andre refused immediately. No need, here is fine, you don't need to waste time. Jasmine looked awkward. Andre crossed his arms arrogantly. Tran Lak, cast your fireball that burned your own face and attack me. Blair eyed the room doubtfully. Here, isn't it a bit small? The elderly man glanced over and urged. Do you really think your little fireball can harm Andre? If he says attack, then attack, don't waste time. Blair smiled and scratched his head. If that's the case, I'll have to surprise you. He closed his eyes and concentrated. Raising his hand above his head, he chanted a spell. O fire elements scattered in the world, hear my summons and gather to my hand. The elders' faces showed discomfort. Andre frowned and interrupted before Blair finished. Stop, your spell is slow and weak. No power at all. But Blair ignored him, raising his hand in front of his chest. Chanting on, the flames gathered thicker and thicker around Blair's hand. Jasmine's mouth dropped open in surprise. Eyes wide, the elderly man stared at the dense fire element swirling around Blair's hand. Andre's expression changed to one of caution. Wait, but it was too late. When the fireball nearly covered Blair's hair, he suddenly opened his eyes wide and shouted. Fireball, a large ball of fire, about the size of Blair's body, shot toward Andre with intense heat. It quickly grew to the size of an adult, radiating fierce warmth, about to engulf Andre. Andre panicked and pressed against the wall, trying to dodge, but the fireball struck. Boom! A loud explosion echoed, forcing Blair and Jasmine to cover their ears. Thick smoke and fire billowed from the blast, filling the room. Jasmine covered her nose and mouth, coughing. Slowly, the smoke cleared to reveal a white figure at the center. The elderly man waved his hand, casting a multicolored light around the figure. Dispersing the smoke, he coughed as well. A wall of water had appeared, blocking Blair's fireball. The water was bubbling furiously. Andre lay on the ground, covered in gray smoke, looking terrified. The elderly man stood protectively before Andre, continuing to cast spells. A strong wind swirled around them, blowing the smoke away. He wiped the smoke off Andre's clothes, then did the same for Jasmine, who was still wide-eyed and coughing. Blair muttered, Sorry, I thought you were prepared, so I might have used a little too much force. Jasmine stared at the smiling boy, scratching his head next to her. Jasmine handed Blair 2 cards. Mr. Tran Lak, here are your magic apprentice certificate and your library card. Blair took the cards just as Jasmine added cheerfully. By the way, Mr. Tran Lak, your fireball spell today was really impressive. I've never seen a fireball with such power. One day, I'm sure you'll become a great mage. Blair thanked her and left. Just as Jasmine was saying goodbye, she suddenly realized something. How did he know her name? As for Blair, he took a walk around the library. Amazed. Wow, so many books. I didn't expect this place to be so crowded. He sat down and read for a while, thinking to himself how strange it was. Jasmine hadn't exaggerated. The library had far more magical texts than the academy. And the contents were much deeper, especially those about the power of magical spirit energy. The level of magical spirit strength is the most important criterion for judging a mage's rank. the higher the spirit power, the stronger the bond with magical elements, and thus the stronger the magic spells cast. Moreover, high-ranking mages with stronger spirit power can directly override the elemental control of lower-ranking mages. This makes it nearly impossible to surpass rank differences in actual combat. But Blair thought back. The theory about the 4 elemental magics in the books didn't quite add up. After all, the scientific understanding in this world was still very primitive. Mages here believed that the 4 elements were the foundation of all magic and the basis for the creation of everything in the world. All other elements were supposedly derived by mixing the 4 in specific ratios. From a modern scientific perspective, that was nonsense. Physically, matter is made of atoms. Atoms combine to form molecules via covalent bonds. And ions form via ionic bonds. Chemical elements are defined by unique atomic compositions. The so-called 4 fundamental elements simply didn't exist among these basic elements. However, considering the presence of magical elements in this world, Blair realized he still hadn't found a scientific explanation. Suddenly, a thought struck him. Wait, if it's possible to connect with elemental magic in this world. He jumped up, excited. If it really was feasible, what if he could create new magic? Holding his library card and certificate tightly, Blair dashed out of the library, thinking, I have to try this. Unnoticed, 2 pairs of eyes had been watching him all along. Behind him, Jasmine brought coffee to Andre and the man in red. Coffee's ready, Master Andre. The man in red eyed Blair suspiciously. That Tran-Lak guy, his spirit power is obviously low. But the fireball he cast was unbelievable. Andre was even more puzzled. He couldn't control the fire element Blair summoned. He suspected that there was something on Blair that they simply couldn't explain. That evening, Blair slipped out quietly. Clinging to the wall, he performed a perfect vault to reach an open space, landing softly to avoid detection. After confirming no one was around, he prepared to test the question that had been on his mind. He closed his eyes and slowly concentrated. Taking a deep breath, magical elements gradually gathered in his palm, startling him. Opening his eyes wide, he realized he could actually sense and even control the flow of elemental magic. Here we go, he thought, searching for the second most abundant element in the atmosphere. He gathered oxygen, combining it with the magical elements in his hand. Blair doubted at first. Was this really a pure element? It was invisible to the naked eye. After all, he tried again, focusing the fire element. Suddenly, fire and lightning exploded. The glass windows cracked from the energy blast. Brittany, working in her office, was startled by the cracking glass and shaking room. She looked out the window and saw a massive burst of energy. Back to Blair, the explosion left behind thick smoke. He covered his nose, squinting through the haze. After a while, the smoke cleared. He sighed in relief, grateful he'd avoided the worst of it. Looking at the destruction he caused, Blair was shocked. That's overkill, he thought. Complete combustion. He mused. It's the process where a continuous and sufficient oxygen supply allows all combustible materials to react, producing carbon dioxide, water, and sulfur dioxide, releasing all the fuel's heat energy. Clearly, the purity of the elemental oxygen was far greater than he'd expected. Suddenly, a voice cut through his thoughts. Classmate, what's going on over there? A figure ran over quickly. Without waiting for the other person to finish, Blair bolted. Didn't expect to cause such a ruckus. Better get out of here fast. He ran farther and farther away, thinking to himself, though I went a bit overboard, I actually created something pretty impressive. Blair smirked to himself with quiet pride. The next day, after classes were over, Blair lay face down on the desk. He silently vowed to himself that he would never pull an all-nighter again. Suddenly, someone placed a hand on his shoulder. It was Toby, who spoke loudly. Blair, did you hear about what happened at the academy last night? Blair blinked and replied, I was sound asleep all night. What happened? Toby leaned close and whispered into his ear. There was a huge explosion near the third-year student dormitory building. All the windows on that side were shattered. The academy is currently investigating and suspects that a high-level mage cast a spell inside the school. Toby rubbed his chin thoughtfully and said, you didn't see the scene. But the power was at least that of a senior mage. But think about it. Why would a high-level mage cause trouble inside the academy? Blair wiped sweat from his forehead and said, how would I know? I've never even met a senior mage before. Toby frowned. How could you never have met a senior mage? Isn't Brittany one of the senior mages? Blair suddenly shouted in surprise. Oh. He then went straight to the teacher's lounge to find Brittany. She immediately opened the door when she saw him. Blair, it's you. Perfect timing. I was just about to look for you, she said cheerfully. Brittany took him inside and handed him a newspaper. "Here's the paper. Your thesis on Lao's puzzle has been published by the Mathematical Association." Blair quickly skimmed through the paper. Brittany continued, "You proposed the solution, so your name is listed first among the authors. Congratulations on solving a tough problem in the math world." Blair put the paper down and said, "Brittany, actually, I came to see you for something even more important." Brittany looked surprised. "Something more important?" Blair then spoke seriously. "Brittany, please allow me to study math with you." Brittany couldn't believe her ears. Flustered, she asked, "But didn't you say you wanted to become a mage?" Blair replied firmly, "I do want to become a mage. But I also love math. I don't want to have regrets later." He hesitated before adding, "Sometimes I feel like in my past life, I was just like you, honored to be a math teacher." Before he finished, Brittany grabbed his hand and exclaimed, "Blair." Her eyes sparkled with happiness. "I'm really glad you think that way." Then she hugged him warmly and said cheerfully, "From now on, come study math with me every evening after class." Caught off guard by the sudden hug, Blair's mind felt like a volcano erupting. Embarrassed, he gently pushed her away. Brittany didn't notice and continued brightly, "With your talent, if you study seriously, you can definitely become a great mathematician." Blair blushed and said loudly, "That's right, Brittany. Besides math questions, if I have questions about magic, can I ask you too?" Brittany smiled and said, "No problem at all." Blair felt happy and said, "Thank you, Brittany. I'll head home now." As he opened the door to leave, Brittany called out, "Remember to come tomorrow evening." Blair hurriedly replied, "Yes, yes, goodbye, Brittany." Just as he was about to leave, Brittany suddenly shouted, "Wait a moment." Blair paused and looked back at her. Brittany rested her chin on her hand, lost in thought. Worry and caution were clearly written all over Blair's face. Brittany, on the other hand, was deep in thought, a stark contrast to Blair's open attitude. She glanced in his direction and said, "Blair, I'm starting to think that you didn't say you wanted to study math just to ask me questions about magic." This caught Blair off guard. She kept her serious and cold demeanor, waiting for his answer. Blair felt his mind go into chaos. Staring blankly, he thought, "Oh no, I've been found out. What now? Am I doomed to leave this beautiful world? I wonder if Brittany will give me a failing grade. I still want to live a few more years." He swallowed nervously, unsure how to respond. Feigning innocence in line with his age, Blair said, "Brittany, I was just thinking that since I'll be spending more time with you from now on, it'll be easier to ask you magic questions directly." Brittany patted his shoulder. Bop. Then she gave a few more pats. Bop bop. Blair flinched in shock. "That's enough." Brittany quickly changed her tone to encouragement. "I told you, Blair, you're not the type of person who would use math as just a tool. It's late now, so I suggest you go home and rest. Remember to come by after school tomorrow." Blair nodded obediently. "Yes, ma'am." He let out a sigh of relief after overcoming that hurdle, thinking, "Is this girl smart or just clueless?" The next afternoon at the school, Blair opened the door and called out, "Brittany, I'm here." Inside the room were not only Brittany but also Isabella. Both looked up at Blair as he stood there. Isabella stared intently and asked, "What are you doing here?" Brittany quickly came to his defense. "Sorry, Isabella, I forgot to tell you earlier, from today on, Blair will be studying math with us. Isabella, you're the senior student now, so help him out a lot, okay?" Isabella didn't seem thrilled about having a new study partner. Brittany said, "Blair, sit next to Isabella. I just prepared a question for you both." But Isabella turned her face away as Blair approached, muttering, "HMPH." The question Brittany gave was, if you drop a stone down a deep well, and after a certain time drop a second stone that weighs twice as much as the first, when will the second stone catch up to the first? Isabella answered first, "This is basically a motion problem. We just need to know the time and." Blair had already found the answer, "It will never catch up." He explained seriously, ignoring air resistance. "The heavier stone will never catch up to the lighter one." Isabella wasn't convinced and scoffed. "Blair, even if you don't have the basics, at least be reasonable." Brittany found it strange too. "Blair, even if you don't know what air resistance is, the ancients said that heavier objects fall faster." Isabella added, "The heavier the mass, the faster the fall. That's a fundamental truth. Even children know that." Blair was silent for a moment. Then he looked at Isabella and asked, "Are all the ancients' words always true? Have you tested them yourself?" Isabella was surprised that Blair dared to challenge the ancients. Brittany didn't know how to stop these two kids. The tension between them was intense. Sparks flying metaphorically. Blair said seriously, "Science must be approached with great caution. You can't call something a truth if it's never been tested. Isabella didn't argue further. Fine, if you want to test it. Are you willing to bet? But Blair's intention wasn't to bet. No betting. Students shouldn't gamble. I'll consider that inappropriate. Brittany raised her hand to stop the argument. Alright, you two stop it. But Isabella wasn't willing to give up. Bet 10 gold coins. Blair changed his mind, not wanting to lose. Just a small bet then. Let's do it. Brittany, please be the witness. Brittany sighed in frustration. Highs, you two. The three of them were all in the school courtyard. Brittany held up 2 stones and said, the weight difference between these 2 stones is almost exactly double. Blair, you'd better reconsider. 10 gold coins is not a small amount. Blair didn't change his mind. Brittany, I've thought it through. Isabella taunted him. You really think you can win? Seeing Blair remain silent, Brittany spoke up. Blair, confidence is good, but don't get too cocky. A gust of wind blew past them with a whoosh. Brittany rose into the air, carrying both stones. The wind she created grew stronger and stronger, fluttering fiercely. Blair gasped in surprise. Wow, that's amazing. Isabella sneered. You know what that is? It's the wind manipulation technique from the wind magic discipline. You don't even know that? You have no knowledge at all. Brittany kept ascending higher, until she was level with the clock on the tower. Isabella was confident she'd win the bet this time. HMPH. Just stand there and wait for your defeat. She then dropped the 2 stones. They fell freely toward the ground. The smaller stone and the heavier one dropped at nearly the same speed. Thud. Both stones hit the ground simultaneously. The test results were clear. Isabella was stunned and couldn't believe it. Blair looked triumphant. HMPH. Even Brittany was shocked. She slowly floated down to the ground. The three of them stared at the 2 stones that had just fallen. Isabella was breathless. This really goes against the ancient truths. How is this possible? She was still astonished they landed at the same time. Brittany's eyes widened in surprise. She wondered why Blair had discovered a problem with the law of free fall. Blair explained, I saw the law stated that way in the textbook, so I tested it with 2 stones to see if it was true. Then I realized the actual falling objects don't follow the textbook exactly. Brittany thought to herself, a truth passed down for thousands of years can be overturned just with 2 little stones. Yet no one has tested it for all these years. In this world, countless sages and scholars never noticed the flaw in basic knowledge. Why does Blair always discover these things? It's probably more than just luck. Brittany clasped Blair's shoulder and said, Blair, you probably don't realize what these 2 stones really represent yet. But I believe soon your name will appear in the section about the law of free fall in science textbooks. The new law still has many parts to be completed. And this isn't just your achievement, it belongs to all 3 of us. Blair smiled. That meaningless glory again. Better to just butter people up. Brittany shook her head. No, this is your achievement alone. Blair, I was only the one who helped you drop the stones. Then she had a new idea. But if you're willing, you can work together with Isabella to improve the law of free fall. Isabella was so surprised she stammered. Aye. Blair nodded in agreement. I think I really need Senior's help. Isabella, but I don't know if you'd be willing. Seeing his conciliatory attitude, Isabella was a little surprised. She'd never thought of cooperating before. The shockwaves among the students of St. Donata's school. Suddenly 2 prodigies were about to collaborate on a completely new theory. Images of the 2 studying together appeared in her mind. Isabella dreamed of a future, famous as a genius shaking the entire field. Then she thought about needing Blair's help. So she had to keep her pride. If you say so, then maybe, yes. Blair smiled. Great, thank you, Senior. She thought to herself, together. The formulas for the law of free fall that Blair and Isabella will develop could make them a legendary duo in scientific research. Blair and Isabella. The young girl blushed quietly at the thought. Isabella rested her chin on her hand, looking thoughtful. That's it, Blair. From now on, if anyone at the academy bullies you, just tell me, I'll help you deal with it. She whispered to herself. Actually, thinking about it carefully, this Blair guy isn't so bad, smart, not bad looking, and on top of that, Blair, standing beside teacher Brittany, responded to Isabella. Alright, thank you, Senior. He stretched out his hand toward Isabella. She blushed, wondering, what does he want to do? Is this pervert serious? Does he want to hold my hand? What should I do? I'm kind of excited now. Trying to stay calm, she looked at Blair and asked, what are you doing? He replied, 10 gold coins. Blair's eyes sparkled as he smiled. Getting rich, getting rich. Isabella ignored Blair's bright smile, turned her back, and ran away, her face frozen in shock, thinking, WTF, is his brain full of crap? Coins jingled as they fell in front of Blair. He turned around, sat down, and seriously counted each coin, muttering, "Small coin, small coin, small coin." Isabella looked at him, smiled, and said, "Stop it, you don't need to count. It's exactly 10 gold coins." Blair looked at the coins in his hand with joy, thinking, just one bet and I can make 10 gold coins. Getting rich in one day. Suddenly Isabella called Blair, making him freeze. In the rustling wind, Isabella looked at him as he walked over and said, "It seems like you don't care about fame or glory. Although you seem to value money a lot. I feel like it's not just about the money for you." Blair was silent, frowning in thought. She continued, "Blair, what do you really want?" Blair remained silent, not answering. A breeze rustled around them. Blair pondered on his past life. He had always worked hard, as a teacher guiding and advising students. He remembered the happy times with his friends. His eyes grew cold and sharp. His serious expression remained as he said nothing. Suddenly, Blair spoke. "Senior Isabella, what are you talking about?" He stood up and continued, "I just want a lot of money to improve my life." Blair turned to both of them and smiled. "It's getting late. Brittany, Isabella, I'll head back now. See you tomorrow." With that, he walked away casually, the wind rustling around him as he put both hands behind his head. Brittany and Isabella watched him with thoughtful expressions. The next day, Blair lay on his desk, thinking, but honestly, this desk feels much more comfortable to sleep on than that tiny partition over there. He remembered the gold coins Isabella had given him yesterday and rested his chin on his hand. Well, at least I have money now. Suddenly, footsteps approached. A loud thud echoed as Bard came over, slamming his fist on the desk angrily. "Hey, Blair." Blair looked at him, wondering, "Bard?" Bard frowned angrily and said, "Trash, Headmaster Fitch is looking for you. Aren't you going to get up?" Blair blinked in confusion. "Fitch? Who?" Bard's anger flared even more. He grabbed Blair by the collar and shouted, "I advise you not to be ignorant. You really think shooting fireballs makes you so tough? Huh?" A voice called out, making Bard freeze. "Bard, let go." A blonde-haired person approached. Bard stammered, Headmaster Fitch?" Blair turned to look at him. Standing next to Fitch were two others. Fitch's eyes were cold and sharp as he silently stared at Blair. Blair wondered, "So this is Fitch?" Fitch stepped forward and asked, "Are you Blair?" Then he smirked. Blair stayed silent, deep in thought, looking at him. Blair glanced at Bard, who was still gripping his collar with a scowl on his face. He said calmly, "You heard me, let go." Bard immediately released his grip with a hiss of frustration. Blair straightened his clothes, then turned to Fitch and asked, "I am Blair, may I ask what this is about?" Fitch gave him a warning glare. "From now on, stay away from Isabella." His cold eyes narrowed as he continued, "She's not someone you can just casually approach." With that, Fitch turned his back and started to leave with his followers. Bard looked back at Blair and shouted, "Boss, aren't we going to deal with this brat?" Blair scratched his head, looking puzzled, watching them walk away. As they passed, Fitch accidentally bumped hard into Toby, who immediately fell to the ground. Fitch frowned at Toby, rubbing his shoulder where he had been hit, and let out a grunt before leaving the classroom. Toby quickly got up and walked over to Blair, scratching his head anxiously. "Blair, are you okay? What just happened?" Blair shrugged casually. "Nothing, just some guy named Fitch and Bard came to talk to me." Toby's eyes widened in alarm. "Fitch? Why would he pick a fight with you?" Blair looked confused and asked, "Who's Fitch? You seem pretty scared of him." Toby explained, "That's Headmaster Fitch. Everyone at the academy fears him. Except for weirdos like you who just bury their nose in books and don't care about anything else." He continued, "Fitch comes from the famous Howard family in Pau City. He's the son of Viscount Howard, a major figure in one of the sects. Many teachers here are members of that sect. If you cross Fitch, you won't have an easy time living here at St. Donatus Academy." Toby patted Blair's shoulder, advising, "Blair, I know you're totally infatuated with Senior Isabella. But seriously, don't underestimate Fitch's warning." Blair blushed and replied, "Infatuated with Isabella? What are you talking about?" The sky was clear, signaling a beautiful day. At the school, inside the classroom, Blair leaned back in his chair, deep in thought. "Although the power of the fireball summoning technique is great, I have to summon the fireball first before I can draw on the elemental energy. That means I can't execute the technique quickly." He rested his hands behind his head, thinking, "But not needing spells or gestures is definitely my biggest advantage right now. How can I summon two different types of elements at the same time?" Suddenly, Isabella called him, interrupting his train of thought. She looked at him and said, You haven't finished the assignment teacher Brittany gave us yet. She's going to go over it tomorrow. Blair yawned and handed over his homework. Isabella blushed as she took it. She was surprised and asked, "You finished everything already? I've only done half." Blair leaned back, twirling his pen. Many of the problems can't be solved by simply applying the basic methods. You have to find a clever way. He glanced at her. You have to come up with a better solution. Isabella looked at his work seriously, a hint of excitement in her eyes. So that's how you do this part. Blair moved closer to her. By the way, Senior Isabella, he asked, how many fireballs can you summon at once? Isabella answered, 9. Blair froze in shock. 9? How do you do that? She looked at him teasingly. Isn't it time for the genius Junior Blair to stop summoning fireballs one by one? Blair blushed awkwardly and scratched his head. I've read a lot of magic books, but none of them explain how to summon multiple elemental magic at once. Isabella crossed her legs and rested her chin on her hand. That's normal. Most magic books only cover basic theories, not specific magic techniques, but my father hired a senior magic advisor for me. I learned the technique of summoning multiple elemental magics at once from her. She teased, though, if someone dared to call me Big Sister, maybe I wouldn't mind teaching them. Without hesitation, Blair said, Big Sister. Isabella froze, then blushed deeply, turning her back to him. You pervert, you've got some nerve. Blair scratched his head, embarrassed. Isabella stood up and said, come on, follow me, I'll teach you. Outside the school, Isabella and Blair walked to the garden. Isabella closed her eyes and raised her hands, chanting a spell. Gather here. Fireball technique. Suddenly, a strong wind swirled around Isabella. She opened her eyes, revealing 9 fireballs floating steadily in front of her. Blair stared in shock. Mouth agape, he exclaimed. 9 fireballs, and they're all so stable. Isabella lifted one fireball on her fingertip and explained, the key to summoning many fireballs lies in distributing your mental strength. Many mages believe mental strength can only be maintained in one place. She continued, but if you master the technique, you can disperse your mental energy everywhere. Each portion can independently summon elemental magic, allowing you to summon multiple fireballs simultaneously. Blair raised his hand to ask, Teacher Isabella, can each mental energy portion summon different types of elements? Isabella smiled. Good question, Blair. Theoretically yes, but in practice, it's very difficult. It's like trying to draw a circle with your left hand and a square with your right at the same time. They both laughed happily. Behind a corner, Bard watched in shock. He guessed, could Blair really have some kind of relationship with Senior Isabella? Suddenly, a strong hand clenched the wall so hard it cracked and crumbled. Bard turned pale, staring at the broken wall. Fitch appeared, silent but furious. He threw the broken wall piece aside and said coldly, Blair, his eyes glinting dangerously. He added, I will make sure you pay dearly. Bratteen. The fireballs gathered inside Blair's body, his mental strength dividing smoothly into separate parts. He closed his eyes tightly and gently circulated his energy. The result? A single fireball shot out from his hand. Isabella stood before him, hands on her hips, her tone strict as she reminded him, remember, you must follow the method I just taught you. Break down your mental strength step by step. Then she closed her eyes, trying to look encouraging, but it's normal if you can't do it right away. Even I had to practice for half a year before I could stabilize my mental strength like this. Blair paid no mind and slowly held the fireballs in his hands. Suddenly, a loud boom echoed through the air. Isabella's eyes snapped open in surprise at what appeared before her. She saw him calmly controlling the fireballs, which radiated intense heat. Her eyes fixed on the floating fireballs in shock. She couldn't help but call out, You! Disbelieving, she urgently shouted, You! How can you do that? Blair looked determined and explained gently, I followed the method you taught me. Senior, I divided my mental strength into 9 parts, then summoned accordingly. She frowned, sensing something off. Pointing at him, she questioned, No, that's not what I meant. I asked how you could do it right away like that. Blair looked confused, not understanding. Then he asked innocently, If you know the technique, shouldn't you be able to do it immediately? Isn't that how it was for you, Senior Isabella? Her expression twisted into a slight grimace. Suddenly, her face flushed red as she pondered. This pervert, not only is his mathematical talent impressive, but his magical talent is so naturally defiant of fate. This isn't someone abandoned by the gods, he's clearly a favorite. The growing embarrassment made her stomp the ground in frustration. Then she shouted at him, Of course, even I understood it faster than you. Blair was speechless as she turned and walked away, but not without adding a parting shot. I'm done teaching, From now on, if you have any magic problems, figure them out yourself. Don't come to me anymore." Blair scratched his face, bewildered. What did I do to upset her? Girls' feelings are so hard to read. Suddenly, his hand brushed against something in his pocket, interrupting his thoughts. He glanced down at it, looking surprised. Isabella had walked away, but her face still showed irritation, clearly upset thinking about the pervert from before. Suddenly, Blair ran after her, catching up and grabbing her arm. Her pupils shrank in shock. After regaining her composure, she turned sharply and asked, "Pervert, why are you grabbing me?" But her eyes caught sight of what he held, and confusion crossed her face. In his hand was a sparkling bracelet shaped like a cute cat. Seeing her reaction, he said kindly, "Dear Senior Isabella?" His gaze softened, sincere and warm. "This time, I was able to learn because of your devoted teaching." He stepped closer and offered, "Please accept this small token from your junior disciple." She stared at the bracelet, feeling a subtle flutter deep inside. Right now, the bracelet seemed to emit a strange, irresistible glow, sparkling endlessly. Her face flushed deeply, her heart pounding wildly, making her lips tremble slightly. She glanced away to calm herself before replying, "HMPH, I guess you do have a bit of a conscience." Though she spoke stubbornly, inside she felt quite amused. This pervert isn't so bad after all. With that, she quickly grabbed the bracelet. Once she had it, she spun around and sprinted away, shouting as she ran, "But this bracelet is hideously ugly." In her haste and embarrassment, she stumbled and fell flat on her face. Blair, startled, called out, "Senior, take it slow." She said nothing, slowly sat up, and brushed herself off. Then she turned to glare at him, her face still red with embarrassment. Seeing the fierce glare, Blair felt a flicker of fear and his thoughts spiraled wildly. Wait. Why is she looking back at me like that? What should I do? Comfort her? But won't she just scold me? Ignoring his inner turmoil, she quickly ran off, leaving behind a trail of accusations. "It's all your fault, you pervert. Just wait. I'm never going to forgive you." Blair was left feeling helpless and confused. He looked up at the sky and sighed. What did I do wrong? Time passed slowly. He calmly lay down on the lush green grass, gazing up at the blazing sky above. As he lay there, the scene from earlier replayed in his mind. Honestly, if she didn't like it, she shouldn't have taken it. I spent a whole 50 silver coins on that bracelet. The peaceful surroundings made him sigh aloud. Originally, this gift was meant for Brittany as a thank you present. Well, that plan was spoiled now. Suddenly, 3 figures appeared before him, catching him off guard. It was the 3 members of the Bard group, standing casually in front of him. The leader of the Bards glanced down at Blair and said, "Blair, I thought Senior Fitch already warned you about this." He added, "Don't get too close to Senior Isabella." Blair listened quietly but said nothing. Suddenly, he stood up, standing in the middle of the 3. The only sound was the wind rustling gently through the grass, peaceful and calm. Realizing the situation, Blair turned and dashed forward, leaving the 3 young men bewildered behind him. They quickly gave chase, shouting, "You bastard, stop right there." Blair frowned, annoyed, thinking, these guys are such a hassle. Best to avoid them altogether. Suddenly, the Bard leader opened his mouth wide and shouted tauntingly, "Blair, are you just going to be a coward like your father? Running away on the battlefield and getting killed?" A flash of rage lit up Blair's eyes. He stopped in his tracks, stunned by the provocation. "Run away? Huh? Go ahead, keep running," he muttered coldly. Seeing this, the Bard leader pressed his advantage, sneering, "Ticked off yet?" Then he lunged at Blair, throwing a punch with force, smugly saying, "You brought this on yourself, idiot." The punch struck the back of Blair's neck, but something blocked it. The attacker lost his balance and fell backward in a pitiful heap, smoke swirling from his hands, accompanied by the sizzling sound of something burning. Blair turned to glare down at him, fireballs flickering in his hands, his gaze cold and deadly. The Bard leader clutched his arm and screamed in pain. Blair's expression darkened with irritation as he said firmly, "Although he isn't my father, your father was a soldier who died honorably on the battlefield for his country. He was a great man." The man paled and trembled at Blair's words. Blair continued to stare him down and emphasized, "You will not insult him. Understand?" The 2 other Bards behind the leader, witnessing Blair's overwhelming power, couldn't believe their eyes and were left speechless. Nine fireballs? How is that even possible?" they exclaimed in unison. Realizing they weren't mistaken, the 2 fled together, leaving the Bard leader standing alone, shouting after them, "Hey, you two!" Blair's glare grew even colder as he looked at the Bard leader. Seeing his comrades run away, the leader slowly turned back, Facing Blair, his figure filled with bitter resentment. Tears welled in his eyes as he stammered fearfully. "Why you better not come any closer." Blair's face darkened. The man warned him that the academy forbade students from fighting. Annoyed by this, Blair coldly replied, "So you know about that rule too?" He backed up until he was against the wall, looking at Blair with fear in his eyes as he called out, "Blair, don't be reckless." Blair's gaze hardened, and with full force, he shot back coldly, "Bard, that's something you should have said earlier." The fireballs in Blair's hands surged forward straight at him. Helpless, Bard could only raise his arms to shield himself and scream loudly. Suddenly, Blair heard a noise behind him and glanced back to see 3 figures approaching. So he instinctively stopped. Bard still hadn't realized what was happening. He squeezed his eyes shut tightly, wildly flailing his arms and shouting for help. Then, he heard a sound and opened his teary eyes in surprise. It was no mistake. The noise came from Blair suddenly collapsing to the ground. Bard stood there stunned, seemingly clueless about what had just happened. Slowly, he crawled over and poked Blair's head lightly, thinking to himself, "What's wrong with this guy?" Suddenly, panic overcame him and he scrambled away, muttering under his breath, "Why are you even bothering with him? Let's get out of here." Just then, the 3 figures who had approached earlier reached Blair's prone form. Brittany turned and caught sight of the young man fleeing in confusion. She quickly called out, "Bard, stop." He raised his hands in a gesture of innocence and hurriedly said, I didn't do anything." By then, Brittany was already kneeling beside Blair, gently stroking his head to soothe him. As expected, Blair slowly opened his eyes and listened to Bard's frantic explanation. Please believe me, it was his own clumsiness that made him fall." Brittany ignored Bard's words and only looked at Blair with deep concern. She then said, "You didn't do anything, but how did he end up like this? Don't think I don't know what you guys usually get up to with Blair." Hearing her trust in him, Blair's ears turned red with embarrassment. Bard kept trying to prove his innocence, shaking his head vigorously. No. At first I really didn't do anything. But what just happened wasn't what the teachers think. Please, Brittany, listen to my explanation." Before he could continue, the vice principal's patience ran out and he shouted angrily, "Enough." He stepped forward and confronted Bard. "Blair collapsed right at your feet. Do you think we're all blind? And you're still here making a scene? You've already tarnished the academy's reputation." Turning on his heel in frustration, the vice principal glanced back at Bard and said, "Go to my office immediately. I'll deal with you when I have time." Terrified, Bard could only nod in agreement. The vice principal patted Bard's back and awkwardly apologized to the deputy headmaster. "Sorry, Deputy Headmaster Calvin, the academy has been a bit lax in management, causing you to lose respect for us." The deputy headmaster responded politely. Vice Principal Archer, bullying among young students in the academy is, unfortunately, quite common. Brittany, supporting Blair from behind, had overheard their entire conversation and knew that strict action was necessary. However, she wasn't sure how Blair was doing now. At that thought, she glanced down at him again. Suddenly, a voice called out, "Blair." For some unknown reason, Blair's mind drifted into a dreamy state. His face flushed red, his nose began to bleed, and he felt lightheaded. He mumbled, "Mom, I think I'm seeing heaven. Oh, an angel is waving at me." Seeing his strange condition, Brittany grabbed his collar and shook him gently, calling out loudly, "Blair, are you all right?" Blair's dazed voice replied, "I'm fine. Actually, you almost suffocated me just now." Receiving the reassuring response, Brittany hugged him warmly and said, "That's good to hear. Do you know how worried I was?" Blair felt a little guilty and responded, "Brittany, I'm sorry." As the two shared this heartfelt moment, Deputy Headmaster Archer cleared his throat to get their attention. He said, "Blair, this time the academy will definitely deal with this strictly and give you a proper answer. But there's something more important we need to discuss with you." Just as he was about to continue, Brittany suddenly remembered something and cut in. I almost forgot to introduce everyone." Blair quickly stood up and followed her, standing respectfully as she introduced each person. "Blair, this is Vice Principal Archer, and this is Deputy Headmaster Calvin from the Mathematics Association." Blair simply nodded politely. Yes. Seeing the senior figures appear, Blair bowed respectfully. "Vice Principal Archer, Deputy Chair Calvin, it's an honor." Calvin nodded in return and praised him. "To assist Miss Brittany in solving the Laus conjecture, truly. You are a promising young shoot of mathematics." But Brittany quickly clarified, "Deputy Chair Calvin, I believe there's been a misunderstanding." With neither pride nor hesitation, she explained, "Blair solved the Laus conjecture on his own. I merely helped him write the paper." Calvin's expression grew serious as he looked directly into her eyes. "If you're willing, the Mathematics Association is prepared to fully support you in competing for the Edwin Prize. Miss Brittany, I suggest you consider this seriously. The Edwin Prize is the most prestigious award in the mathematical world." Concerned that she might not fully grasp the weight of the offer, he continued, "This is a matter of great importance, not just for you, but for the Academy as well." Brittany furrowed her brow in thought. After a moment, she voiced the question that had been weighing on her mind. "But couldn't it be Blair instead?" Calvin let out a soft huff. He seemed to understand Brittany's dilemma well. He calmly explained, "He's still too young. In terms of mathematical achievements, he hasn't yet built up a body of work like you have. Even if you insist he solved the Laus conjecture, I'm afraid it would be difficult to convince others." Despite Calvin's reasonable argument, Brittany still insisted. But just then, Blair's voice called from behind, cutting off her train of thought. "Miss Brittany." He gently took her hand and shook his head slightly, signaling her not to keep fighting for recognition on his behalf. Seeing how mature and understanding her young student already was, Brittany felt a pang of guilt she couldn't quite put into words. Deputy Chair Calvin noticed their uncertainty and decided to give them time to consider. "Let's do this," he said. "You and Blair can discuss it further. Once you've reached a decision, let me know. Whatever you choose, the association will respect your wishes." With that, he and Archer turned and left. Brittany responded politely, "Understood." As the sun dipped toward the horizon, the golden light of dusk spread across the academy grounds. Along a quiet corridor, Brittany and Blair strolled side by side in silence. Wanting to ease the tension, Brittany finally spoke. "Blair, while your solution to the Laus conjecture may not be a groundbreaking new development, it did resolve a historical problem. It holds profound significance in the history of mathematics." Gazing at his back, she added, "It belongs to you. You shouldn't let someone else take the glory for it." Blair listened quietly to her heartfelt words. When she finished, he finally replied, "Miss Brittany, you might not know this, but that glory was never meant to be mine either." He paused, then added with complete sincerity, "And besides, you're not someone else." Hearing that, Brittany's heart skipped a beat. She could hear it pounding in her chest, thump, thump. A strange, unfamiliar feeling welled up inside her, and her cheeks flushed red with embarrassment. She tried to mask it with a scolding tone. What are you even saying? Blair?" Blair, confused by her sudden mood swing, tried to explain, "I meant," but she quickly cut him off, using an excuse to end the conversation. "It's getting late, you should go now. I still have things to take care of." "I'm heading off too." Blair could only watch helplessly as she walked away. Maybe it was because he'd never experienced romance before, but he stood there, dazed, letting out a dry laugh. "Did I say something wrong again?" Blair fell into deep thought for a moment. Viscount Howard scoffed and turned to leave. But suddenly, Blair raised his voice. "Wait a moment." The old man flinched in surprise and turned back toward him, looking directly at his opponent. Blair continued, "According to the rules of the kingdom's mathematical society, since I've answered Senior Fitch's question, he is obliged to answer one of mine in return. Am I correct, Viscount Howard?" The Viscount glanced at Fitch, hesitating for a moment. Then, still shooting a sidelong glance at the young man, he responded, "You don't need to remind us. We understand the rules well enough. Go ahead and ask your question." Blair nodded calmly. "My question is very simple. If a square has a side length of 1, what is the length of its diagonal?" The Viscount froze in shock. Brittany stepped closer and whispered, "Blair, don't you know? The Howard theorem was discovered by the Howard family itself." The old man smiled, as if regaining confidence, and explained readily, "According to the Howard theorem, in a square with side length 1, the square of the diagonal equals 2. That's basic knowledge." But Blair shook his head. "Viscount Howard, you didn't answer my question. I didn't ask for the square of the diagonal." He then offered a mischievous smile, his eyes gleaming with amusement. "I asked for the actual length of the diagonal." His words struck like thunder. Though filled with fury, the Viscount could do nothing but clench his jaw in frustration. The guests began murmuring in confusion. They'd never thought to question the actual value of that diagonal. Could it really be that difficult to express? Sweat beaded on Viscount Howard's temple as he stood silently, watching Blair's group. Blair, catching the murderous flicker in his eyes, confirmed his own suspicions. "Just as I thought. He's known about the existence of that number for a long time." His thoughts drifted back to the other world. Back there, scientists were admired but rarely remembered by name. Despite their enormous contributions to humanity, most people paid more attention to the scandals of celebrities than to scientific breakthroughs. But in this world, things were the opposite. Even though the scientific level was still primitive, scholars held incredibly high status. People revered knowledge here, more than magic. Even scholars who contributed to scientific advancement were honored by all, regardless of nationality. Royalty and nobles alike treated them with deep respect. These like-minded thinkers gathered into schools of thought that wielded immense political and economic influence. One such group was the School of Numbers, and the Howard family was its backbone. Their influence in the kingdom's mathematical circles was so great that even the Lord of Pau, Isabella's father, had to tread lightly around them. The School of Numbers was more than an academic organization, it was a political, philosophical, and religious order. Its members revered numbers to a sacred degree. They believed that everything in existence could be quantified, that every natural phenomenon could be expressed precisely through numbers. In fact, Blair realized, their beliefs mirrored those of the ancient Pythagorean school from my world, complete with their own symbolic rituals and carved inscriptions. The Pythagorean school, founded by the famous Greek scholar Pythagoras, had once flourished, but it also had a fatal flaw in its ideology, one that eventually led to its collapse. Blair rubbed his chin, thinking back. The numbers they revered weren't real numbers in the modern sense. They believed that all quantities could be represented by integers or rational numbers. But then came one of Pythagoras's own disciples, Hippasus, who uncovered a crack in that belief. Hippasus discovered that in a square with sides of length 1, the diagonal's length could neither be an integer nor a rational number. His findings shook the very foundations of the school's belief that all is number. And when they couldn't disprove his discovery, they chose to silence him instead. Legend had it that the Pythagoreans cast Hippasus into the Aegean Sea with a stone tied around his neck, drowning him for speaking an unbearable truth. But the truth could not remain buried forever. Over time, Hippasus's discovery gained recognition, and it sounded the death knell of the Pythagorean school. Eventually, humanity realized that not all numbers were rational. A new kind of number had been born, irrational numbers. Blair smiled faintly at the thought. He calculated silently with his fingers. From that moment on, our understanding of numbers expanded to the entire realm of real numbers. Then he turned a somber gaze toward Viscount Howard. That expression on his face just now. He definitely already knew about the existence of irrational numbers. If that's the case, then what happened to this world's Hippasus? The Viscount stood frozen, trembling, using a handkerchief to wipe the sweat streaming down his face. The guests, too, were caught in confusion. How could there be a length that couldn't be expressed with numbers? Where did this question even come from? Brittany turned to him, perplexed. Blair, what's wrong with this number? Why does it seem like no known number can express it? Blair replied calmly, Miss Brittany, it's a whole new type of number. There are many such numbers like it. I suspect someone in this world discovered them long ago, but their findings were buried by those who feared the truth. I simply wanted to thank Fitch for the help earlier, and while I was at it, reveal this truth to more people. Viscount Howard stood silently nearby, his gaze blank, but the hand gripping his cane trembled uncontrollably. Fitch noticed and felt a rising dread. Clenching his teeth, he muttered, "Damn it." He then glared at Blair and bellowed, "It's all because of you." Losing control, he charged forward with rage. "Blair, you're dead meat." The sound of footsteps echoed as Blair calmly watched Fitch charging toward him. Swiftly, he shifted into a defensive stance, ready for confrontation, but unexpectedly, Fitch's arm was caught midair, gripped tightly. Elise stood before him, radiating a fierce aura, looking at him with sheer disdain. Fitch struggled and yelled, "Who are you? Let go of me." Alice gave a polite smile as she spoke in a calm voice. "Sorry, but I can't just stand by and let you act so recklessly." Fitch clenched his fists and tried to break free. "Damn woman, how are you this strong?" Suddenly, a cold, familiar voice cut through the air. "Fitch." Viscount Howard had his head lowered, voice harsh and steady. "You think the disaster you've caused today isn't enough?" His eyes locked onto Fitch for a long moment before continuing. "You've truly lost control, haven't you?" Fitch was clearly terrified. Father, The Viscount raised his voice, drawing the attention of every guest in the room. "Everyone," he announced with a forced composure, "I must sincerely apologize for all the trouble caused today. It is entirely my failure to properly discipline my son. I will be sure to correct this moving forward." Then, turning toward Blair, he added, "As for the number Mr. Blair just mentioned, please rest assured, our numerist order will spare no effort to uncover the answer in the coming days." He bowed respectfully. "Mr. Blair, thank you for enlightening our family today. I have pressing matters to attend to, please excuse me." Grinding his teeth in frustration and humiliation, he forced out. "I hope you enjoy the rest of the evening at my estate." Blair responded politely, "Of course, Viscount Howard, I wish you a splendid evening as well." But whispers erupted all around them. Can the numerist order really figure it out? I doubt it's that easy. Blair actually backed the Howard family into a corner. Incredible. The words stung the Viscount, his face darkening as he turned away. Blair then turned to Alice and said, "Thanks for earlier, by the way." Alice blinked in surprise. "Wait, did you just call me, Miss?" Blair looked confused. "Huh?" Alice teased. "Seriously? Junior Blair, have you already forgotten your senpai? That's a little cold, isn't it?" Just then, Isabella landed a sharp whack on Blair's head. Smack. Ow. Blair winced in surprise. Isabella stood with her hands on her hips, scolding him fiercely. "You pervert, why are you always cozying up to other girls when you already have me?" Blair rubbed the bump on his head, pouting, "That's not true. And, wait, what do you mean, other girls besides you? I haven't done anything to you either." Alice burst into laughter at the scene. "I'm sorry," she said through her giggles. "Didn't mean to interrupt your little lover's quarrel." Both Blair and Isabella looked confused. "Lovers, what?" Brittany, watching from the side, let out an awkward chuckle. Alice waved a hand, still smiling. "Kidding, of course, but seriously, you two have such good chemistry, it's kind of adorable." Isabella's cheeks turned bright pink. "We are not what you think." Then she paused and asked, "Wait a minute, Alice, what are you doing here anyway?" Blair stood aside, still nursing his wounded pride. Alice looked surprised. "What, Brittany didn't tell you?" She turned and greeted politely. "Good evening, Miss Brittany." Her eyes sparkled with a hint of charm, her voice soft and hypnotic. "I've been attending this academic gathering for years. But Isabella, this must be our first meeting, isn't it?" Brittany stepped in to explain. Alice's family is a renowned mathematics clan from Pau City. She's been representing her family at these academic banquets for quite a while now. Alice extended her hand to Blair. After a brief pause, she said warmly, "Let me introduce myself again. I'm Alice, third-year student at St. Donatus Academy. Same class as Isabella." She looked Blair in the eye. "Nice to meet you, Junior Blair. I hope my earlier words didn't make things awkward." Blair smiled and shook her hand. "Nice to meet you too, Senior Alice." Suddenly, Alice leaned in with a mischievous grin. Bending slightly, a nosebleed quietly erupted. Alice's voice, as sweet as spring honey, murmured into his ear, "Your performance today was truly impressive. This is the first time I've seen the arrogant Howard family so utterly humiliated." She gently placed a hand on Blair's shoulder and asked curiously, "Would it be all right if I came to you for some math guidance from now on?" Just as the romantic air was peaking, Blair suddenly said, "I'm sorry." Alice blinked, stunned, her cheeks flushing red. With a serious expression and an X-shaped hand gesture, Blair solemnly replied, "I must respectfully decline." Blair stood like a statue, radiating calm authority. "I suggest you ask Miss Brittany instead. Many of my ideas came from her inspiration." Alice shook her head helplessly. "You're really hard to read. You know that?" She turned to leave, waving goodbye. "See you later, Junior Blair. Next time, let's talk when no one else is around." "Goodbye, Miss Brittany." Blair also waved. "Goodbye, Senior Alice." Behind him, Isabella puffed her cheeks in frustration. "That girl, let's talk when no one else is around. What's that supposed to mean?" Brittany looked a little awkward at Isabella's outburst. "Goodbye, Alice." Isabella kept grumbling. "HMPH. And you looked like you were about to lose your soul just now. You almost looked like you wanted to go with her." Blair blinked. "Why would I want to go with her?" Isabella erupted like a volcano, jabbing a finger in his face. "The moment you see a pretty girl, you're ready to follow her like a puppy. You're no better than the rest of those disgusting guys." Brittany had to step in to calm things down. Blair scratched his nose. "Is she prettier than you?" Isabella flushed bright red, trembling. "So you're saying, you don't think she's prettier than me?" Blair replied honestly, "No." Her voice faltered. I see." Blair wept internally. "Wow, she's easier to pacify than I thought. Good thing she didn't bring up body shape, if we're just talking about looks." "Then I guess I'm not wrong." Isabella stood there, dazed, as if still processing what just happened. Suddenly, a new voice cut in. "Good evening, everyone." Brittany greeted him warmly. "Vice President Calvin, what brings you here?" The man responded with a serious tone. "You three are the stars of tonight's gathering. Of course I had to come and say a few words." Blair grew cautious. "You flatter us, President Calvin. We merely solved a math problem and happened to raise a question. That's all." Calvin stared at Blair with a hint of displeasure. "That problem you solved, and the question you asked, were far from ordinary. He began to explain. Solving the royal capital's 7 bridges problem is a source of pride for the Howard family. And yet your proof today showed that the problem has no solution. This strikes at the heart of their supposed legacy as a prestigious mathematics family, a serious blow to their credibility. He paused, then continued, and that number you mentioned, the numerists pride themselves on quantifying everything. But now, they can't even find a number to represent the length of a simple segment? If that number truly doesn't exist, then the entire foundation of the numerist philosophy, no, the entire mathematical community, will be shaken to its core. His eyes sharpened. So, Blair, who exactly are you? A dark aura seemed to gather around him. Why do you possess such terrifying talent? And why are you only showing it now? What is your true purpose? The barrage of questions made Blair uncomfortable. But then he smiled sheepishly. What are you talking about? President Calvin? Everyone saw what happened. Senior Fitch asked me a question. And I just suddenly thought of a way to answer it. That's all. He scratched his head. As for that number, I was just curious. Besides, didn't Viscount Howard already say they'll do everything they can to find it? Calvin's expression softened as he stroked his beard and chuckled. Perhaps I'm overthinking things. Rest assured, the Mathematics Association will always stand on the side of truth. Blair smiled politely, but Calvin's face turned serious again. Still, his voice dropped to a grave tone. Be careful of the Howard family. They're not as easy to deal with as you might think. Elsewhere, Fitch lay on the ground, coughing violently, his body trembling. His face was bruised and battered. Breathing ragged, Viscount Howard sat silently on the sofa, watching. In the shadows behind him stood a man cloaked in mystery. My lord, everything is prepared. We can act at any moment. Veins bulged on the Viscount's forehead. Wait until he leaves the estate. As always, make it look like an accident. No one must suspect a thing. The subordinate bowed. Understood. Suddenly, a voice rang out behind them, startling the Viscount. Father, you're planning to kill someone again, aren't you? Abel stood in the doorway, a faint smile on his face. The Viscount turned, stunned. Abel? His presence radiated danger. The old man was shaken. Why are you here? Even the subordinate was in disbelief. Impossible. I made sure. Abel cut him off coldly. It's no surprise you didn't expect this. The Viscount's face went pale. Abel turned his back on them. After all, it was your order last time too. Just like now. The old man shouted in fury, drawing a pistol. Why aren't you dead? Why show your face now? That boy, Blair, he's with you, isn't he? Abel approached Fitch and looked back at the Viscount. You're still as ruthless as ever. Huh, Dad? Not even sparing your own son. The Viscount raised his gun, voice trembling with rage. Answer me, Abel. Fitch looked up weakly, eyes wide with shock. Brother. Abel sighed. You and your endless questions. It's hard to know where to start. He straightened up, voice turning cold. Let me be clear, that Blair boy out there? He has nothing to do with me. But, he gave me a golden opportunity. A glint of hatred flashed in his eyes. And that's why I've come back. He took a step forward, his voice resolute. I've returned to remake the entire Howard family. The old man was stunned by those words. You want to change the family? He confirmed it. That's right, Father. What do you think the foundation of our family is right now? Without hesitation, the old man answered, of course, our honor. He immediately refuted. Wrong. The real answer is deception. The old man nearly exploded. What are you trying to say? A bitter smile tugged at his lips. Isn't it obvious? You've known for a long time now, haven't you? That the 7 bridges problem of the royal capital has no solution. And that number can't be expressed at all. From the ground, Fitch pushed himself up, adding, but to preserve what you call the honor of the family, and the legitimacy of the number sect, you chose to bury those truths. The old man cocked the gun. And not only that, Fitch continued, in recent years, anyone who discovered the truth and tried to reveal it to the public, you found ways to deal with them. He laughed bitterly. Even your own flesh and blood wasn't spared. Enough, the old man roared, pointing the gun at him. For the family, I won't hesitate to kill you again. Raising his hand, he said coldly, Father, you've gone too far. Do you remember what I once told you? The truth can never be hidden forever. Sooner or later, someone will bring it to light and destroy this family built on lies. His eyes burned with intensity. And that someone is the boy named Blair. Today, he stood before all the mathematicians of Maou and burst the bubble of our so-called honor. He stepped forward, hand gripping the barrel of the gun. Even if you silence me, even if you silence Blair, can you silence everyone who was there that day? If you can't, then by tomorrow, the truth will spread throughout the entire kingdom. The Howard family's honor will shatter. the number sect will lose its faith and collapse entirely. When that happens, can the House of Howard still survive? His words made the old man's hands tremble. Finally, he wrenched the gun from his father's hands. The old man gritted his teeth. Then tell me, what should I do? Without hesitation, he replied, let me take your place as head of the family. Let me rebuild it, change it, so that the Howard family can continue to exist. He placed a firm hand on the old man's shoulder, lowering his voice into a threat. You must know this already, right now. I'm the only one left who can still save this family. The old man hesitated, eyes flickering with turmoil. Then the son leaned in and whispered something in his ear. Whatever it was, it left the old man utterly shaken. A few days later, at Brittany's house, Blair woke up to the loud screeching of an alarm clock. He climbed out of bed, in a surprisingly good mood. Sleeping in a proper bed really was different, so much more comfortable than the smelly storage room. Rubbing his eyes, he opened Brittany's door. Good morning. Then he froze. On her desk was a towering stack of papers, neatly piled, absurdly high. He sobered up instantly. She must have stayed up all night again, trying to figure out that number. Ever since the mathematics symposium, the proof that the 7 bridges of the royal capital had no solution had spread like wildfire through the kingdom's academic circles. The Howard family's prestige and honor had come under scrutiny. But even more shocking than that was the so-called number, the number that couldn't be expressed. People had started calling it the devil's number. His eyes lit up. That's actually a pretty cool name. Now, every mathematician, especially the number sect, was trying to find a way to express it. But no matter how hard they worked, no one had made any progress. He picked up one of the sheets and scanned it. Well, of course, right now, no number, no method in this world can express an irrational number. To them, irrational numbers are an entirely unexplored field. He looked at the pages scattered around him, each one filled with dense formulas, drifting like feathers. And yet, despite the difficulty, the scholars of this world still deserved respect. Even in the darkness, they were searching, thinking, trying. He believed that, eventually, they'd find the way forward on their own. Just like the mathematicians from his world, no matter how rough the path, it would always lead to the other side of the truth. A page fluttered through the air, drifting far off, alongside a dove taking flight. He sat at the table reading the newspaper, sunlight streaming through the window onto the desk. Suddenly, he noticed something. The paper had news about Viscount Howard. Excited, he picked up the paper to read. Abandoning mathematics really is the most reasonable choice for the Howard family right now. But to outright give up such action, this new head of the family seems interesting. While he was still wondering what this new family head looked like, Brittany approached. She rubbed her sleepy eyes, wearing only a thin shirt. Good morning, Blair. He couldn't take his eyes off her. Good morning, he replied. In his eyes, Brittany seemed to be blooming like a flower. Her face darkened. Didn't I tell you last night to wake me up properly? He looked down at the table. I forgot. She poked his cheek. You're such a naughty kid. Her playful gesture made him blush with embarrassment. She was so beautiful, and every time she said he forgot, he really did. And that number too, she continued. You already know what it is, right? You're just not telling me. Don't pressure the teacher like that. Talking so much now. She suddenly noticed that he was blushing all over like a tomato. She grimaced. Slap. Pervert. Her voice echoed through the room. He rubbed the spot on his cheek and went to the kitchen to make breakfast. Wincing in pain, she looked at him with a bit of guilt. Putting her hands together awkwardly, she said, Sorry, Blair, I didn't even realize. Are you still hurting? He turned to her and said, Brittany, I've noticed that when you just wake up and when you're normal, it's like you have 2 different personalities. She was speechless. She shyly scratched her head and looked away. Am I really that annoying right after waking up? No. That word surprised her. He continued cooking while speaking honestly. No matter if it's normal or just after waking up, I don't dislike you, Brittany. She looked at him silently. Unable to find words, she shyly smiled. Thank you, Blair. Your nose can't possibly get any longer. Not bad. You didn't say anything wrong this time. She glanced at the frying pan. By the way, Blair, what are you doing? Why are you putting those little red things into the pan? And mixing them with eggs? I'm making scrambled eggs with tomatoes. She looked confused. Scrambled eggs with tomatoes? He plated the food, steam rising thickly. He explained, in my hometown, tomatoes are called pink fruit. Scrambled eggs with tomatoes is something almost everyone knows how to make there. He recalled his past life. This was the dish he cooked most often. After setting the table, he grabbed his bag to leave. All right, it's done. I'm off to school. Try it while I'm gone. Brittany called out. Wait. She took a cloth and wiped his shirt. His eyes widened in surprise. Time seemed to freeze at that moment. He could hear his heartbeat pounding wildly. After a moment, his shirt was clean as new. She stood at the door, waving. "Okay, be careful on your way." He turned back and nodded. "Yeah, I'm off." After he left, she sat down and looked at the breakfast. It looked strange. Could it really be edible? She took a spoonful. She was shocked. The flavor lingered on her tongue, the fragrant eggs, the long-lasting aftertaste. Her legs curled up. The tomatoes were sweet and fragrant, cool on the throat just right. Her whole body trembled with joy. So good, so good. I can't believe how good it is. Meanwhile, his stomach was loudly protesting. He rubbed it. The gloomy atmosphere made everyone around puzzled. He had been so busy cooking that he forgot about himself. Still hadn't eaten. The blonde girl immediately said, "Hey, have you seen today's academic bulletin? The Howard family has a new head, and the new leader just took office and disbanded the mathematics faction." The brunette girl replied, "Of course I saw it. I heard the new head is a young, handsome guy. It feels really mysterious." The white-haired girl excitedly chimed in. "The truly mysterious one is that guy. He solved the Feng Du failure problem, came up with the so-called demon number, and then vanished without a trace." The brunette frowned in curiosity. "Who is he exactly?" The blonde replied, "I heard from Uncle Ben at the Math Association that he's actually about our age. Plus, the reason he's kept so quiet is because he requested it himself. How could one number shake the entire math world? And he's supposedly our age? I don't buy it." Then the blonde put her hand to her mouth and whispered, "I think he must be a mysterious old man in disguise." From a distance, Isabella and Blair quietly watched the three girls. Isabella placed her hands on her hips and asked, "Hey Blair, are you even listening to me? I'm asking if you really don't know how to express that number." Blair shrugged and replied, "I told you, I don't know everything." Isabella slammed her hand on the table angrily and shouted, "No way, you must be lying to me." Suddenly, a gentle voice spoke up. "Isabella, are you here to pick a fight with my little Blair again?" Alice stepped in from the doorway with a bright smile, waving as she greeted, "Good morning, Blair, underclassmen." Suddenly, Alice blew a kiss that left Blair frozen in place. Isabella's expression turned sharp and impatient. She asked Alice, "Aren't you supposed to be in third grade? What are you doing here? And who is this, little Blair, of yours?" Blair gently responded, "Good morning, Sister Alice." Alice blushed slightly and gave a soft smile. Nearby, a white-haired boy saw this and walked over to whisper to a friend sitting nearby. Two popular beauties recognized by the 5th and 3rd grades, Senior Isabella and Senior Alice. He rested his chin on his hand, thinking about the two girls before wondering if Blair was about to get caught in a love triangle. At that moment, with Alice stepping forward, all attention was on her. She leaned close to Blair's ear and whispered, "Blair, what were you all talking about just now? Something about that number?" Suddenly, Blair's stomach grumbled loudly, making his face turn red with embarrassment. His stomach rumbled again. Alice and Isabella stared intently at Blair, who awkwardly turned his face away. Then he scratched his head and softly apologized. Alice smiled gently, covering her mouth. Isabella was grumpy and scolded Blair, "Are you a pig? It's not even lunchtime yet." Suddenly, a delicious-smelling steamed bun was handed over with a sweet voice saying, "Here, look at this tasty bun." Seeing the bun, Blair couldn't help but drool. Alice bent down to hand him the bun and asked, "I happen to have an extra lunch today. Could someone help me finish it?" Blair's eyes lit up, and hesitantly he answered, "I guess I can." The bun had a little heart-shaped mark on it, seeming to have a special charm for him. Blair took the bun with one hand, placing the other over his chest, and said, "Thank you, Sister Alice, you're so kind." Before he could even enjoy the bun, Isabella pinched his cheek painfully and shouted, "You can't take that." She scolded him angrily. "How can you just accept food from a stranger like that?" Blair hurried to explain, "I was going to refuse, but the bun smelled too good." Isabella snapped, "If you're hungry, why didn't you ask me?" Blair answered, "I did tell you. Didn't you call me a pig?" Isabella raised her voice, "I don't care. That's because you're not sincere enough. I was here first." Alice calmly explained, "For a genius like Blair, it's only natural that I want to help him." Isabella clenched her teeth in annoyance. She then put a hamburger in front of Blair and said, "Here, this is for you. I also have an extra portion. Now give that bun back to him." Blair looked uncomfortable, replying, "This." Alice stepped forward with a smile, reminding Isabella, "Hey, Isabella, what right do you have to interfere with Blair's choices? As far as I know, Blair hasn't even officially confirmed his relationship with you." Isabella clenched her teeth. Her face darkening, she turned to Blair and loudly demanded, "Choose. Blair, do you want my bun or Sister Alice's? You can only pick one." Alice softened her tone and said, "Just pick what you like. Little brother Blair, either way, I'm fine with it." Alice and Isabella exchanged fierce, competitive looks. Blair sat between them, sweating nervously, thinking, "I just want to quietly eat my meal." Alice and Isabella clenched their teeth, staring at each other with furious eyes. Blair sat in the middle, confused and unsure how to handle the situation. Finally, he decided to take the bun from Isabella's hand. "All right, then, thank you, Sister Isabella," he said. Hearing this, Isabella laughed loudly and smugly, beaming with pride. "See, my sandwich is definitely better." Blair tried to stuff both buns into his mouth at once. Sweat began to bead on his forehead. He struggled to swallow the two buns, much to the astonishment of everyone in the room. He clenched his fists tightly, trying to force the buns down his throat, which swelled and turned bright red. As soon as he swallowed the two buns, tears streamed down his face. He tried to say, "Both sandwiches were delicious. Thank you both, sisters." Alice gently clasped her hands and praised him. "Well done." Isabella placed her hand on her cheek, proudly replying, "See, my sandwich really is that good. Too bad you had to eat it so fast." Suddenly, Alice wiped the crumbs off Blair's face with her finger, leaving him completely stunned. She slowly brought her finger near his lips and gently reminded him, "You've got crumbs on your mouth there. You really need to be more careful." Then Alice stuck out her tongue and licked the crumbs off her finger. Blair blushed deeply as he looked at her. Isabella angrily shouted, "Alice, what are you trying to do?" At that moment, Alice paid no attention to Isabella's words. She climbed onto the desk, savored the taste of the crumbs on her finger, and exclaimed, "My sandwich isn't bad at all. It's really delicious." Suddenly, the school bell rang loudly. Alice jumped in surprise and said, "Oh no, class is about to start." She quickly waved goodbye to Blair and reminded him, "See you later, Blair, be sure to study hard." Blair smiled brightly in response. "Goodbye, sister." As Alice left, Isabella grabbed Blair's arm and said, "I'm leaving now. I'll wait for you in class after school." Blair listened attentively and replied honestly, "Got it." Isabella left the classroom and slammed the door shut behind her. Blair sighed in relief, thinking, "Finally, she's gone." Suddenly, a chubby hand pinched his cheek and called, "Blair." It was Toby, who sat next to Blair. Curiously, he asked, "So, since when did you know Sister Alice?" Blair answered, "I think it was a few nights ago." Toby covered his face in shock and exclaimed, "At night?" Blair replied seriously, "What do you mean?" "That night, Brittany took me to an academic exchange at the Math Association. That's where I met Sister Alice." "Wait, the academic exchange a few days ago? Isn't that where they presented the demon number?" Suddenly, Blair reminded, "Hey, Brittany's here." During class, Blair went up to the board to solve a problem. While doing the exercise, he explained to everyone, "You can try different methods. This is how to solve this formula." While he worked on the problem, Teacher Brittany said, "Now everyone, feel free to split into groups to discuss the question on the board." Then she quietly called Blair over. He turned around to look. She sneakily took out a sandwich hidden behind her back. Blair asked in surprise, "What's this?" Teacher Brittany whispered, "You forgot to eat breakfast today, right? Here, this is for you. Eat quickly." Holding the sandwich, Blair's expression darkened. He forced a smile and thought, "So it's a sandwich after all." Blair then returned to his seat to discuss the lesson with his friends. He took out the sandwich. Still looking unhappy, Toby asked, "Blair, why do you have another sandwich?" Blair hesitated. It's a long story. We should focus on the lesson first." Suddenly, a pink-haired girl stood up and slammed the table, startling Jasmine, who nearly dropped her glasses. The girl smiled and asked, "Earlier Toby said you joined the math exchange a few days ago. So you must have seen that mysterious person, right? I saw in the academic bulletin that the mysterious guy solved the 7 Bridges of Wong Capital problem at the seminar. And also came up with the demon number." Blair looked pale and asked, "What should I say?" "I guess you could say I saw him." The pink-haired girl, hands on her hips, asked in surprise, "Guess?" At that moment, Jasmine sat silently with a deeply suspicious expression. Blair had no choice but to make up an excuse. "When that mysterious person appeared, I was busy with something else, so I wasn't there. By the time I got back, he had already announced the demon number. The exchange was pretty chaotic by then, and I couldn't find him." The girl asked curiously, "At such an important moment, you had to leave? What was so urgent?" Blair sighed helplessly. "I ate too much, so I had diarrhea." Upon hearing this, Toby grumbled, "Diarrhea at a crucial moment like that? Blair, even if I gave you a chance, you wouldn't be able to take it." The girl immediately defended Blair. "What are you talking about, Toby? Blair is good enough to even attend that academic exchange. The people there were all important figures from Aba City. Just knowing one or two of them is impressive." Then she looked at Blair with admiration and asked, "By the way, Blair, do you have time recently? Could you come over and tutor me on some math problems? There are quite a few I don't understand. My estate is huge. If you get tired, you can just stay over." "No problem at all." Toby nearby sneered. "You, tutoring math? I'd be embarrassed to expose you." The girl angrily snapped back. "I know how to study. So what if I do?" Stood in the corner watching them and then fell into thought. At school, Blair walked down the corridor tiredly, thinking, and then there's Chris too, what a handful. He also thought, I really should build good relations with the magic department. Since when did you care so much about practicing magic? He tried to encourage himself. I still need to practice magic. That's what really matters. Suddenly, a shadow appeared in front of him. The figure pulled out a knife and pressed it against Blair's neck. Blair wondered silently. Who is this? They stood frozen, staring at each other. The figure spoke first. Don't act rashly. This knife is very sharp. Seeing the familiar friend, Blair replied fearfully. Lily, She cut him off. If I'm not mistaken, you're the one who solved the 7 Bridges of Wong capital problem and revealed the demon number at that exchange. Right? I noticed your math and magic skills have been growing very strangely lately. Suddenly, she shouted indignantly. You're not Blair. He couldn't possibly have that talent. Tell me, where is the real Blair? Who are you? And why are you impersonating him? Blair tried to explain. You're asking too many questions. I don't know where to start. But first, I am Blair. That's true. He thought to himself. Better not mention the whole time travel thing just yet. She angrily clamped her hand over his mouth and shouted. Still speechless. Huh? Don't tell me you think your translation magic is perfect? Blair cried out in pain. Feeling guilty for hurting her. She said confidently. But the more perfect the translation magic is, the more it can be broken by direct contact. Suddenly, she thought, what? Lily squeezed his cheek hard and whispered. No reaction? Blair tried to endure the pain, thinking, it hurts so much. He angrily kicked at her, causing Lily to lose balance and fall. In that moment of fear, she squeezed her eyes shut, expecting a hard fall, but she didn't feel anything. Slowly opening her eyes, she realized Blair had caught her just in time. That scene stirred something in her heart. To Lily, Blair was a strong person. Blushing, she shouted, Hey, what are you doing? Let me go. Blair calmly replied, Okay, I'll let you go, but don't put that knife to my neck again. And also, he added, you already tried that once. You believe I'm Blair now, right? Her face flushed red as she replied, HMPH, let me go first. But inside, she still doubted, even if you don't use translation magic. How can you suddenly have such talent in math and magic? And your way of speaking is very different from Blair's. He quickly answered, How should I say this? It's a long story. I am Blair, but also not Blair. Actually, I had a very long dream. When I woke up, I became who I am now. Blair began to explain, I come from a world without magic, where science and technology are highly advanced. In contrast, the science and technology in this world have developed so much that they even surpass magic. People here can use scientific and technological devices to accomplish many things that magic cannot. He continued, thanks to this advanced science, humans can reach nearly every corner of the planet, and even travel beyond space to other planets. As for me, I was an ordinary math teacher in that world. Because of that, I can use advanced mathematical knowledge that people here can hardly imagine. Suddenly, Lily raised her hand to speak. Excuse me, teacher. Tran Lak turned to her. Does the student have a question? Lily asked with curiosity. Is it really possible to travel through space? Are there really other planets beyond the sky? Tran Lak explained. That's a very good question. Of course, it is possible to leave the sky and travel into outer space. Besides our planet, there are countless other planets in the universe. Lily smiled slyly. I understand, teacher. Thank you for your explanation. But the key question is why I suddenly became like this. Blair was at a loss for words. Back at the school scene, they faced each other, deeply engaged in conversation. Realizing he might have said too much, Blair apologized. Sorry, I didn't mean to overshare. In short, I dreamed a very long dream. When I woke up, I suddenly had the talent for math and magic like I do now. But unfortunately, I also lost some of my original memories. Lily listened intently, then hesitantly said, Blair shyly added. That's basically it. She sighed. Well, then. Lily smiled awkwardly. Looks like you really are Blair, still the same as before. Liking to talk about uncertain things. Blair was curious. Do I usually talk like that? She nodded. Almost. Compared to magic, you're more interested in science. You've said you want to live in a world without magic. But maybe it's because you don't have much talent for magic. Then she comforted him. That's why you cried in your dream, because you lost your memories. Don't worry, I'll help you recover them. Hearing that, Blair squeezed her hand gratefully. So you've always cared about me like that. Thank you, Lily. Looking at the hand holding hers, she blushed and said, I only agreed to help you find your memories. Don't read too much into it. Before she finished, Blair asked with a puzzled tone. Huh? Read too much into what? At school, Blair was walking down the hallway. Looking down, he suddenly noticed something surprising. Suddenly, a strong arm slung over his shoulder. It was Toby, who fiercely lifted him up. Blair struggled. Hey, what's wrong with you? Toby angrily demanded. Where did you disappear to just now? Frightened, Blair answered. A tornado swept me off the parking lot. Hey, let me go. I'm flying a plane. Maya. Toby grabbed his collar and said. Stop sneaking around behind my back. Tell me honestly what you were doing. Blair struggled back, biting Toby's airway to fight him off. Suddenly, someone appeared. Toby stammered. PR Principal Fitch. Toby asked in surprise. What do you want to do? Unexpectedly, Fitch bowed deeply before them. He said, Friend Blair, I'm sorry. It turns out I was wrong. Recognizing his mistake, he said sincerely, I, Edward Fitch, sincerely apologize to you. Please forgive me. Blair was shocked and couldn't believe his eyes. He wondered silently, what is going on? Blair asked himself. Forgive. Or, whispers echoed around the room. Senior Fitch apologizing to someone again? What on earth has Blair done? Lately, the Edward family has been in turmoil. It's rare to even see Fitch around. So why is he suddenly rushing to the academy to apologize? Someone handed Blair a black piece of paper, making him curious. What's this? Blair and Toby examined the paper while listening to the explanation. This is from Abel Edward, the new head of the Edward family and Fitch's older brother. He asked me to deliver this invitation to you. He's organizing a press conference for the entire kingdom's math community, where all the rumors about the Edward family will be addressed. Fitch bowed his head, his words polite but his heart filled with resentment. I also hope, Blair, that the elders won't hold a grudge against a child. Please forgive my previous disrespect and honor us with your attendance. Toby whispered a warning. Blair, don't go. Fitch suddenly acting so humble and inviting you like this is definitely a trap. Blair stroked his chin, silent and thoughtful. At the Edward family palace, the inside was bustling with people. Greetings echoing non-stop. Professor, long time no see. Sorry for bothering you at this academic lecture. You're here too? Blair, dressed sharply, looked up and murmured to himself. In the end, curiosity got the better of me. I wonder how this Abel plans to handle the current situation. Suddenly, someone grabbed his ear sharply. It was Isabella, scolding him angrily. I knew you'd come too. Where did you disappear to this afternoon? Didn't I tell you to stay in the classroom after school and wait for me? Blair groaned painfully. A voice called from behind. Blair, so you came after all. Brittany waved cheerfully. We were just looking for you at the academy. Blair asked. Brittany, did everyone else get the invitation too? Brittany shook her head. News that the Edwards are holding a press conference tonight has practically spread through the kingdom's math community. Almost everyone in Aba City is here, and many others came from far away. But no one else got an invitation. Finding this strange, Blair thought, that's odd. Am I the only one who actually received the invitation? Suddenly, someone touched his ear again, making him jump. It was Alice, who asked kindly, Little Blair, is your ear okay? Isabella's a bit rough. Let me massage it for you. Blair blushed. Oh, Senior Alice is here too. He smiled faintly while Isabella looked displeased. Isabella protested. I barely used any force. Okay, Blair, tell me honestly, does it hurt? Alice gently said. Blair, let me blow on it. Then she turned to Isabella and teased. Look, it's all red. How could it not hurt? Caught in the middle of the two women's quarrel, Blair thought, here we go again. Brittany gestured forward, urging, come on, the press conference is about to start. Behind her, Blair was still stuck in the awkward struggle, silently begging for help. The crowd moved inside with a steady rhythm. Something inside caught Blair's attention. The painting from before had been replaced by a blank sheet of paper. He thought, the 7 bridges of Vong Do have been erased. Brittany chuckled. Abel, I wonder how he's going to handle this situation. Blair asked. Brittany, do you know Abel? Brittany replied. Sort of. He and I used to be classmates. He originally planned to become a teacher at the academy. But 3 years ago, he suddenly disappeared for some unknown reason. A few days ago, when I heard he'd become the new head of the Edward family, I was really surprised. Blair asked, what kind of person is Abel? Brittany pondered before answering. How should I put it? He's the kind of person whose eyes see only math. She recalled Abel as he had been back then. In Abel's room, he was sitting and reviewing documents. Fitch entered and said, Sir, everyone's here now. They're all waiting for you to appear. Abel suddenly asked an unrelated question. Fitch, have you ever been in love? Fitch looked confused. What? Abel replied. Being late is the best tactic to increase the other person's anticipation during a date. Adjusting his clothes, Abel asked, By the way, has the person you were supposed to find arrived yet? Fitch answered, There are too many people here, so I'm not sure if Blair has arrived. But I've done my best. Abel placed a hand on Fitch's shoulder and said softly, Relax, Fitch, I'm not your father. You don't need to be so afraid. Then Abel stepped forward and said, Let's go. It's time for the Edward family to turn a new page. His face was serious. The food on the table had been completely eaten by Isabella. She licked her lips, savoring the lingering flavors. Her eyes sparkled with satisfaction. So fragrant. Blair was surprised. He asked, Isabella, didn't you say you wouldn't touch anything I cooked even if you were starving? Isabella pinched his ear. Well, I can't be blamed. It's just that you cook too well. Ouch, that hurts. Blair shouted. Brittany saw this and laughed. Both Blair and Isabella turned to her, asking, What's so funny, Miss Brittany? She replied, Nothing, I just think you two make a perfect match. The two classmates stared at her in surprise. Isabella showed a displeased expression. Who could possibly be a match for this pervert? Blair retorted. Who could possibly match this arrogant girl? Brittany asked. Right, Isabella, now that you're a junior mage, have you seriously thought about which magic specialty you want to focus on later? Isabella answered, I want us to specialize in wind magic. Like Miss Brittany. Brittany explained, although wind magic becomes very powerful at advanced levels, before reaching senior mage status, it's not that strong in combat. And since you're a girl, the most important thing is to protect yourself. You might consider earth magic, after all. Earth magic has the strongest defense among the 4 elements. Isabella frowned. I don't like that. Earth magic is so rustic. Blair felt helpless. No wonder she came up with that reason. Isabella seemed to notice his thoughts and pinched his ear again. This time Blair angrily shouted. Not again. I didn't say anything. Isabella shot back. Clearly, you're mocking me in your head. Pervert, I can tell what you're thinking just by looking at you. Then Brittany asked, Blair, what magic specialty are you planning to choose? Blair was still thinking, then said, Only kids choose just one. Obviously, I'm going to choose them all. Isabella mocked him. Wanting to choose them all? Are you dreaming? Miss Brittany has a rare talent. Do you really think you can learn multiple magic systems at once, let alone all 4? Brittany was surprised. If it's Blair, maybe he really can. Isabella showed irritation. Brittany, he just talks nonsense. Why would you believe him? Brittany continued. The magical elements around Blair give off a very strange feeling, chaotic yet tightly bound. Maybe he truly can simultaneously harmonize the elemental magic of all 4 systems. Brittany stood up. Anyway, we'll discuss choosing specialties later. By then, you'll have to make your decision. Although you're here to study math, magic and math aren't in conflict. Besides math, I can also guide you in magic. Blair and Isabella happily agreed. Okay. Suddenly, Brittany added, but to become an excellent mage, first, you can't rely too much on magic alone. Although the gods grant us the power to cast magic, they also gave us magic incantations and the existence of hand gestures. Many times, mages don't have time to cast spells. To compensate for this, excellent mages need to train in martial arts, specialized to handle situations when they're attacked up close and can't cast magic. Brittany demonstrated by casting a spell to clean the dishes at once. Blair was amazed. Wow, with this, there's no need to waste time washing dishes anymore. Magic really is convenient. Brittany went on. In many cases, martial arts skills are even more important than magic. I hope you two realize this soon. So before teaching you magic, I will first teach you martial arts. Blair was surprised again. Brittany knows martial arts too? Isabella said. Brittany, I already learned martial arts at home. How about I try it out with Blair first, so he can get a hands-on idea? Brittany agreed. Okay, but be careful not to hurt Blair. Isabella stretched and prepared herself. Don't worry, I'll go easy on him. But in her mind she thought differently. HMPH. Math and magic might make you a bit better than me. But martial arts? I definitely won't lose to you. Blair was surprised. Isabella was already in a ready stance. She said, Blair, don't cry when I beat you later. Isabella lunged quickly at Blair. He remained calm and still. Isabella shouted, take this, but Blair dodged. Isabella raised her fist to strike Blair. But he dodged. Then he grabbed her wrist. Isabella was startled. Blair wrestled her forward to the ground. She cursed, pervert, let go. Blair replied, I can let go, but you also, before he could finish. Isabella's foot suddenly kicked sideways into his face. It was a sneaky attack. Blair swung his arm and threw her backward. Isabella panicked, screaming, ah, I'm falling, but luckily, she didn't hit the ground. Blair caught her gently. He said softly, Senior Isabella, sorry for offending you. Isabella blushed a little. Brittany was surprised. Blair, so you've actually learned martial arts before? Blair answered, not officially. I just got interested in martial arts and trained in Tan Da for a while back home. Brittany asked curiously, Tan Da? That's something I've never heard of. Your homeland really is full of wonders. Suddenly, a hand pinched Blair's ear. It was Isabella, who snapped, pervert, how long do you want to keep hugging me? Let go already. Blair replied, oops, forgot. Isabella turned her back, muttering, if I hadn't slipped, I wouldn't have lost to you so soon. Brittany grew interested. Blair, your Tan Da from earlier was too weak. Try attacking me with it. Blair hesitated. No, it's not good. Tan Da is hard to control. I almost hurt Isabella. Brittany said confidently, don't worry, just attack with full strength. Blair agreed. Okay, but you be careful too. Blair charged to attack. Brittany prepared to counter. As Blair got closer, he found himself face to face with her large chest. He blushed, recalling what his martial arts coach had once said, when fighting a real expert. You might not even realize what happened to your body until after. He had doubted it then. But now, he believed it. Brittany struck him blindside. Blair had no time to react and was about to fall backward. But was luckily caught. Brittany helped him sit on the ground. Isabella watched anxiously. Brittany, what's wrong with Blair? Is he okay? Brittany said, you care about him too much. Huh? Don't worry. He just lost consciousness for a moment. He'll wake up soon. Isabella exclaimed. What? I just hope this pervert doesn't wake up again. Brittany teased. Isabella, the truth is, you like Blair, don't you? Isabella was startled. Huh? No. How could I like that pervert? I don't. Brittany, don't say nonsense. Brittany said. No need to deny it. I'm not wrong, because I also. Suddenly Brittany felt something strange. Blair had woken up and was hugging her by the waist. Brittany? Isabella's jaw dropped in shock. Then she covered her mouth. Speechless. Blair woke up groggily. This is. Blair grimaced, clutching the injury on his cheek and groaning. Ouch. Toby saw this and mocked. What happened to you? Just a nap at Brittany's place and you're already hurt? Must have been a wild night. Huh? Blair panicked. Hey, I just slipped and fell. That's all. Then he thought to himself. It's because of that violent girl. Recalling the scene, Isabella had sat on top of Blair and scolded him in front of Brittany. Pervert, and now you even dare to lay hands on Brittany right in front of me. Blair just lay there groaning in pain. Ouch, my arm's about to break. Brittany awkwardly advised Isabella. Isabella, let him go. He didn't mean it. Blair was both angry and frustrated. Martial arts skills aren't great. But the strength is no joke. He almost broke my arm. He also thought about Brittany's martial arts. He hadn't expected her techniques to be so powerful. Clearly she had trained for quite some time with a unique style. In this world, ordinary families couldn't afford to let their children start martial arts training from a young age. Let alone also study math and magic. Suddenly, Brittany's voice cut through his thoughts. Hey, Blair, it was Toby. Toby continued. I've mastered that double fireball spell you taught me last time. Blair turned, surprised. Really? That fast? Toby proudly said. Of course, I'll show you. He closed his eyes and began chanting. Fire elements scattered in the world. Heed my call. Descend here. Watching Toby cast the spell, Blair smiled brightly. Toby finished with a forward palm strike and said, Fireball spell. Blair was stunned, then looked at Toby's hands. Hey, there's nothing there. Toby, confident, said, look carefully. Blair pressed his face close and saw only tiny, weak flames flickering in Toby's hands. Blair patted Toby on the shoulder, smiling. Your magical talent is definitely better than I was at your age. Quietly, Blair thought, that's not really a fireball spell. At best it's just a fire-conjuring trick. Suddenly, a plate of pastries was placed on the table, making Blair jump. It was Alice. She set down the pastries and said, "Blair, I heard you got hurt, so I brought you some food." Blair looked at Alice shyly and said, "Senior Alice." Alice smiled gently. "You probably didn't bring lunch today." "Huh?" Then she turned to Toby. "Has this classmate eaten already?" Toby panicked and blurted, "Eat? I ate." "Blair, I just remembered something. I had to go." Blair, drooling but embarrassed, said, "It's not good to eat your pastries every day." Alice looked on and asked, "Are they tasty?" Blair flattered, "Your pastries are the best." "Senior Alice, by the way, why didn't you eat lunch? Why just stand there watching me eat?" Alice laughed. "I was going to ask you something." Blair wasn't shy. "Go ahead, just ask. If I know the answer, I'll tell you everything." Alice asked, "Do you like Isabella?" Blair choked on his food in surprise. "Senior, why are you asking that too?" Blair looked at Alice. Alice met his gaze. "Looks like someone else asked you the same thing. So what's your answer?" Blair wiped his mouth and replied, "Right now, I just want to focus on learning magic." Alice sighed in a disappointed but understanding way. "That's such a typical, indifferent answer. But that's okay." Blair asked, "Why's that?" Before Alice could answer, she suddenly kissed Blair on the cheek. Blair was very surprised. "Senior, what?" Before he could finish, Alice turned and waved goodbye. "I'll come visit you often from now on." Blair's friend. As Alice left, everyone looked at Blair thoughtfully. First Isabella, now Alice. Blair really was quite the ladies' man. In the quiet space of the library, Blair rubbed his head and scratched his ear. Lost in thought, what exactly did Alice mean by what she said yesterday? He still hadn't figured it out. With no progress after a long time, he sighed and decided to let it go. "Well, whatever. I've almost finished all the magic books on this floor anyway." Blair yawned and stretched his body after hours of focusing on the pile of books beside him. Feeling he had spent enough time here, he decided to change things up. It was time to head upstairs and check out the second floor. He had heard the magic books that were more advanced. At the main hall, Bella was deeply focused on a book in her hands, though she kept shoving snacks into her mouth. She was glued to a romance comic, if you didn't know better. You might think she was studying magic very seriously. Blair, wearing his camouflage outfit, approached her and showed his library card. "Hi, I want to ask, how do I get to the library on the second floor of the guild?" Bella glanced at his card and smirked. "Oh, a trainee. To get to the second floor library, you need to at least be a junior mage." She tossed his card back. Blair explained his situation. "My spiritual energy isn't strong enough yet. I can't pass the junior mage test. Is there any other way?" Bella didn't seem interested. She kept reading and mocked. "Then you're out of luck. Besides, with your magic level, do you even understand the books upstairs?" Blair felt annoyed being looked down on by someone like her. Suddenly, a voice called out, "Long time no see, Mr. Tranlac." It was Lily, cheerfully coming over. "Can I help you with something?" Seeing someone come to his aid, Bella turned away with a look of disdain. So Lily knows him? This junior mage can't even get certified. And he wants to access the second floor library? She thought, then said loudly, "I'm going out for some fresh air." Blair was speechless at her attitude. Ignoring Bella's words, Lily remained professional and calmly explained, "Mr. Tranlac, yes, the second floor library requires junior mage status, unless you can pass a new magic test." Speaking from goodwill, she warned him, "But the chance is slim. I think you should focus on improving your spiritual energy first." Blair immediately decided, "Alright, let's do it. I have a new way to improve the water magic." Lily, sensing his confidence might be overconfidence, cautioned, "If your new magic fails, the guild will think you're deceiving them and blacklist you. You won't be able to access any guild resources anymore. Are you sure you want to proceed?" she asked one last time. Blair answered boldly, "Don't worry, Lily, trust me." The young woman studied him seriously. Seeing his determination, she stopped resisting and gestured. "Follow me, Mr. Tranlac." "Okay," Blair replied. Inside the room, walls covered with ugly patched-up cracks showed how many fierce magic experiments had taken place here. Two men sat in the center, Brady, dressed in blue robes, and Andre, bald and wearing red. When Lily reported the news, Brady was shocked. "What, a magic trainee wants to improve the water ball spell?" Andre, who seemed to suspect a trick, scoffed, probably trying to scam the guild under the pretense of improving magic. Basic spells like water ball have been refined for generations. There's no room for improvement. Especially from a mere trainee. Ridiculous. Brady agreed, looking at Lily. "Think carefully. If he fails, It's not just a blacklist, wasting guild resources will be punished. Despite the doubt, Lily stood her ground. I understand, but I trust this mage. Let him try. Seeing she couldn't change her mind, Brady relented. Fine, let him in. Conduct the test here. Blair entered and faced the two examiners. He greeted them. Hello, respected seniors. They barely responded, chatting casually. How's your wife? Still attending all those banquets? Suddenly Blair cleared his throat and introduced himself firmly, catching their attention. I am Tran Lack, magic trainee. I'm here to improve the water ball spell. After my modifications, its power will increase significantly. Andre narrowed his eyes. Something in his memory stirred. Suddenly, he stood up and pointed at Blair, startling everyone. Wait, it's you? Andre said, hastily pulling Brady aside. Brother, listen. I advise we conduct the test in the lab. This kid is the one from last time. Brady, however, stood his ground and argued. Andre, what's wrong with you? Since that incident, you've gotten timid. He's just a trainee. What are you afraid of? Prideful. Andre challenged. Kid, then show me your improved water ball spell. Now, immediately. Blair had no choice but to obey. Very well, I'll do my best. He raised his arms, gathering spiritual energy that swirled around his body. Closing his eyes, he focused his mind, directing the flow of energy through himself. When he opened his eyes, the water and fire elements appeared, each occupying one eye. In a flash, Blair had successfully summoned two opposing elements simultaneously, something that should not naturally coexist. Witnessing this miracle, Brady was speechless, his mouth agape. He turned to Andre. This kid can summon two opposing magic elements at once? Andre, experienced and cautious, quickly cast a protective spell. Fire element of nature. He muttered the incantation. At that moment, the two opposing forces in Blair's hands compressed and fused, the eternal rivals. Water and fire, combining. With a loud boom, the pressure from this fusion blasted toward the two examiners. Though prepared, Andre was still shocked by the overwhelming power. In an instant, his protective spell shattered under Blair's attack. He could only shout, not again. Boom, boom, boom. A series of explosions erupted, accompanied by blinding light that could be seen miles away. Dust and smoke filled the air. Brady exclaimed in shock. How did you do that? He raised his voice, demanding an explanation. Blair replied calmly. This improved version of the water orb spell is actually quite simple. First, summon a water orb, then summon a fire orb. He continued. After that, fuse them together. Pointing to his hands, Blair explained further. The fusion causes a vaporization reaction, releasing power far beyond that of the original fire orb or water orb spells. Brady was amazed. How is this possible? The Magic Academy had only ever seen one successful fire orb summon, and that was considered a stroke of luck. Now you've managed to combine two elemental spells. Then, with respect, he said, Tran Lack, please wait here for a moment. Lily, please take good care of our guest. Lily brought over a cup of tea. Please, Tran Lack, have some tea. Thank you, Miss Lily, Blair said, holding the cup. He gestured to her. You should sit down, too. If you stand there, it feels odd. All right, Tran Lack, she responded shyly. Blair asked, are you also a mage? Lily? She blushed slightly. Yes, but my magical talent isn't very high. You're much better than me, Blair said modestly. Last time, you summoned a powerful fire orb, and now you can use two elemental spells at once. Lily smiled. Actually, my magical talent isn't that great either. My spiritual power hasn't reached the rank of an official mage yet. The power of my spells is strong simply because I use a different casting method. Blair added, as for simultaneously casting two elemental spells, it's not really about talent. It's about the ability to multitask. If you can use both hands to do two different things at the same time, then casting two elemental spells at once shouldn't be so difficult. He demonstrated by drawing two different shapes with both hands simultaneously. Lily looked at the paper in amazement. She laughed. You drew a wolf and a tiger. Not cute animals like cats or dogs. Then she blushed again and said, but multitasking like this is actually one of my strengths. Meanwhile, in the second-floor library office, the men in green and red uniforms reported to their superior. Vice President Elton expressed disbelief. A mage apprentice who can use two elemental systems simultaneously? Brady, are you joking? Brady responded immediately. It's true, I witnessed it with my own eyes. Andre can confirm as well. Andre chimed in. Yes, and the powerful fire orb from before was created by the same person. Vice President Elton pondered seriously. What this young man has demonstrated is not just a method to combine two incompatible magic elements. It could represent a whole new direction in magical development. He continued gravely, but the question is, how many people can use this magic? If an improved spell can't be widely used, then it loses its significance. He immediately called for all magic officers and staff to conduct tests. People gathered, murmuring, "What's going on? Why did the vice president order us all here? Is there an emergency?" Bella grumbled, "Great, I barely finished my manicure and now I have to rush here. And where's that annoying Lily? She left the place a mess with all those sunflower seed shells." Suddenly, a loud voice rang out. Brady stood in the hall and announced, "A mage has applied to certify an improved magic technique in our guild. But the casting method is unusual, simultaneously using fire orb and water orb spells." He added, "We are gathered to verify whether this magic can be widely developed. I encourage you all to give it a try." A skeptic in the crowd scoffed. Casting fire orb and water orb at the same time? Impossible, Bella thought. Improved magic? That guy must be a poor apprentice. Nothing special. Everyone tried their best to summon the spells. The skeptic failed repeatedly and finally concluded, "No matter how much spiritual power I focus, I can't maintain both fire and water orbs simultaneously. The linking methods for different elemental magics aren't compatible. How could any mage summon two different elemental orbs at once?" The crowd erupted with agreement. Impossible to cast two elemental magics simultaneously. No matter how hard we try, it can't be done. Brady urgently turned to Vice President Elton. "No one in the guild can do it." Elton replied solemnly, "It seems so. Take me to meet Tran Lack." On the way, Brady asked, "Vice President Elton, is this demonstration A?" Elton nodded, "Yes. It seems this combined magic is unique to Tran Lack. No one else can do it." Just then, Lily successfully summoned both water and fire magic in her hands. The three senior men were shocked. Lily saw Vice President Elton and gasped. "Vice President Elton." Blair stepped forward and said, "Greetings, Vice President Elton. Miss Lily here is very smart and has learned the water orb spell. But I wonder what the guild's decision is after discussing my improved version." Elton cleared his throat and said, "Tran Lack, according to guild rules, to certify a magic improvement, at least 3 members must successfully cast the spell." He extended his hand and continued, "But I gathered all current guild members, and none except Miss Lily can simultaneously cast both fire and water orbs." Lily asked incredulously, "Vice President Elton, so the certification is denied?" He answered, "No, I'm making an exception for you, Tran Lack, because your idea about combined magic could be a major milestone for future magic development." Elton then made an offer. "I sincerely invite you to become an honorary member of the Magic Guild in Aba City. Will you accept?" Blair didn't accept immediately and said, "I'm honored, but I have a small condition." Elton encouraged, "Please, go ahead." Blair pointed at Lily. "I request that Miss Lily be promoted to assistant officer of the guild." Lily was stunned, whispering to herself, "Me?" When Lily was proposed for a promotion, Bella showed obvious displeasure. She kept questioning, "Lily only got promoted to assistant steward because she helped that student prove his magic?" With jealousy, she bit her nails and muttered, "That Lily is so annoying. That honor should have been mine. But fate just snatched it away." Then Bella grabbed the collar of a fellow staff member and demanded, "Tell me, where are Lily and that student now?" The poor employee stammered, I don't know." Frustrated, Bella lashed out at her colleagues, calling them useless. Suddenly, she remembered, "Right, the 2nd floor of the library. Lily, wait for me there." Upstairs, in the office of Deputy Head Elton, Blair was discussing something with him. Elton picked up a document and said, "It's settled then, Master Tran Lack. The copyright for the improved water orb technique belongs to you. Of course, management rights still belong to our Aba Magic Association." Blair was surprised. "Copyright? Is there such a thing in this world?" Seeing his surprise, Elton explained patiently, "This copyright means the Magic Association will distribute your improved spell. Anyone wishing to learn it must pay a fee, half of which goes to you as the copyright holder, and the other half to the association." He continued, "If anyone copies or sells your spell without paying, they'll be blacklisted at best, or even imprisoned for serious offenses." Hearing this law, Blair couldn't help but admire it. Although technology here is outdated, their awareness of copyright surpasses my own world. Suddenly Elton asked, "By the way, about the price for your improved water orb spell. How about 100 gold coins?" Taken aback, Blair blurted, "What?" But when he saw the amount in his system, he realized it was quite substantial. Blair's reaction made Elton misunderstand. So he seriously added, Master Tranlak, the price seems low to me. This spell requires great skill. And if buyers fail to cast it after purchase, they might cause trouble for you and the association. Despite the misunderstanding, Blair smiled and said, alright, then we'll go with your suggestion, 100 gold coins. As for troublemakers, I have a plan. Inside, he chuckled to himself, thinking, 100 gold coins isn't much at all. No wonder magic users here seem so rich. This is basically a loan shark's interest rate. He then suggested, add a line at the end of the spell description. Elton was curious. What line? Blair pointed to the text and said, this improved spell requires special aptitude from the mage. Please consider carefully before purchase. All sales are final. Elton pondered and rephrased it. This improved spell requires special aptitude from the mage. Please think carefully before purchase. All sales are final. The final interpretation rights belong to the Magic Association and Master Tranlak. Confused, Elton asked, so you have the final say? Blair answered, exactly, neither of us bear responsibility afterward. Elton smiled slyly and complimented. Very clever. Master Tranlak, you're very thorough. Blair grinned back. Same difference. The scene then shifts to a library. Someone raised a hand and said, Master Tranlak, this is the second-floor library of our association. Blair was amazed. It was larger than he expected and almost empty. Lily explained, only novice mages usually have access here. Few come up, she continued. This place holds not just advanced magic books but also many newly copyrighted spells. You can browse them all. Blair just replied, Lily noticed something odd and asked, what's wrong, Master Tranlak? He answered, nothing, just that you look great in the assistant steward uniform. Taken by surprise, Lily blushed and thanked him. I have you to thank for that. Back on topic, Blair asked, by the way, do you know where to find books about improving mental power here? Lily replied, there aren't many, but I remember a few. Soon she exclaimed, found it, holding a book. She introduced, this one is about training and improving mental power. Grateful, Blair said, you really helped me a lot. Thanks, Lily. Because she was wearing high heels. Lily slipped on a ladder and started falling backward. Panicked, she closed her eyes tight, but nothing happened. Blair was right beneath her. Catching her quickly, concerned, he asked, are you okay, Lily? Being carried like a princess and receiving such care made her blush. Thinking, why does this feel so familiar? Just then, outside, jealous Bella was spying. Furious, she slammed her hand on a bookshelf. Glaring at the two, Lily smiled softly and said, Master Tranlak, you focus on your reading. I have work to do. Call me if you need anything. Blair nodded. Okay, Bella thought bitterly. I knew it. That vixen is definitely trying to seduce him. Suddenly, Bella approached with fake sweetness and said, Master Tranlak, congratulations on passing the spell certification. I told you, you could do it. She coquettishly added, if you ever need help, Bella is here for you. I can do anything. But Blair just coldly said, go away. The words hit Bella like a thunderbolt. Blair turned around, ready to leave. Irritated, he said, sorry, I accidentally spoke what I was thinking just now. Let me say it again, miss. Could you please leave? I need to read some books that a student can't even understand. Bella grabbed his hand to stop him. She moved closer, feigning regret, and tried to apologize. Master Tranlak, I'm sorry. At first, I was indeed disrespectful to you. But it was all a misunderstanding. Please listen to my explanation. Don't believe those twisted things Lily says. Blair paid no attention to her words. He sat down on a nearby wooden chair. As he opened a book, he firmly replied, I don't listen to anything Lily says about you. But since you bring it up, it seems you've done quite a few bad things. I'm still asking you to leave voluntarily. Otherwise, I'll have to ask Hallmaster Elton for help. Bella looked shocked and hurriedly pleaded. No, I'm going right now. Blair turned to the next page and began reading. After finishing, he quietly closed the book and thought to himself that the method in this book were truly worth trying. Until now, all mages believed that the speed of increasing spiritual power and magic was only related to each individual's magical aptitude. Those with high aptitude would improve faster, those with lower aptitude slower. Currently, the accepted methods for increasing spiritual power in the magic world were mostly twofold. 1. Meditation. 2. Continuous casting of spells. However, the authors of this book discovered that when learning a new spell, a mage's spiritual power is consumed very quickly. But after resting for a while, their spiritual power recovers, and their spiritual power limit increases significantly beyond the original. Therefore, all he had to do was repeatedly learn new spells to consume energy. then rest to recover. This could break through the limitations of aptitude and strengthen it. Tonight, I'll study new spells. Finally, there's hope of becoming a saint mage, he thought, raising his arm and smiling with joy. Then he headed to Miss Brittany's house and quickly climbed over the wall, thinking to himself that after climbing so many times, he was used to it. Approaching the door, a sudden feeling hit him. He'd forgotten something important today. His expression darkened as he opened the door. Inside, Miss Brittany and Isabella were sitting dejectedly. Isabella said tiredly, "I'm starving." Miss Brittany was startled and reminded Blair, "You should go now." Only then did Blair realize, "Right, I forgot to cook dinner for Brittany." He called out loudly to the two, and Miss Brittany coquettishly replied, "Daddy, hungry, hungry, dinner, dinner." Upon seeing Blair, Isabella slammed her hand on the table so hard that spoons flew off. Pointing at him, she yelled, "Blair, where the heck have you been? Why are you just coming back now? Brittany and I haven't eaten all day. Do you want us to starve to death?" Blair quickly put on an apron and answered, "I had some things at the Magic Association. I thought Brittany had cooked already. But seriously, why haven't you gone home yet this late?" Suddenly, Isabella's face lit up, and she asked, "Oh, so you don't know yet? Brittany hasn't told you? Starting today, I'm moving in here too." Hearing this, Blair was so scared he dropped the frying pan. Isabella saw this and angrily asked, "Hey, what's with that attitude? Living with a cute senior like me? Don't tell me you're unhappy about that?" Blair suddenly grew gloomy, thinking, "Oh my god, what is she saying? Am I hallucinating? What kind of scary talk is this?" Miss Brittany walked over, smiling, and said, "Blair, I haven't told you yet, Isabella is moving in. This way, I can better teach you both math and magic." Blair turned away and left, sighing wearily, muttering, "Taking care of one silly sister is already enough. Now I have another arrogant one." Isabella stepped closer, raising a fist in anger. "What's that supposed to mean? Do you have a problem with me?" Blair quickly replied, "How dare I have a problem with my senior? Of course, I welcome you with open arms." Isabella warned, "Next time you say something like that, you better fix your attitude too." Blair lowered his head, thinking, "Forget it, tonight's magic experiment is more important. After dinner, it's time to start the experiment. Experiments come first." A while later, the table was filled with delicious food. Isabella held her cheeks and happily exclaimed, "Finally, we get to eat. So good." After the meal, she rubbed her full belly and climbed away satisfied, saying, I'm full. Blair scolded angrily, "Hey, now that you've eaten, wash the dishes for me." Later, Blair entered the bathroom. The room was filled with soap bubbles. He loudly complained, "I told you, after bathing you have to clean the drain. Your hair almost clogged it again." Suddenly, behind the bubbles appeared Miss Brittany and Isabella, both naked. Seeing this, Blair quietly said, "Remember to change your clothes, and get back to your room." Immediately, a slipper flew at his face. That night, just as the clock struck 11, Blair was sitting intently reading his book. As he read, he muttered, "Taking care of these people is like serving ancestors. So exhausting." Suddenly, he slammed the table and loudly said, "No, tonight, even if I have to stay up all night, I must learn new magic." Suddenly, a flame burst up in his hand. He said, "Let's learn this Firebird technique." Then a voice echoed from behind. Blair turned around angrily. "What now?" Isabella gently stepped into the room and asked, "Blair, can I say a few words to you?" Outside, it was already dark, but Blair's room was still brightly lit. When he saw Isabella stepping inside, he immediately said, "Senior Isabella, please come in." She hesitated, then softly replied, Thanks." She sat down beside the bed, looking a bit guilty, and asked, "Earlier, I shouldn't have thrown that slipper at you. Are you okay?" Blair closed his book, stood up from the chair, smiled slightly, and answered, "It's late already. Senior Isabella didn't come just to check if I'm okay, right?" Isabella quietly asked, "I just couldn't sleep and wanted to talk with you." "Blair, do you have any plans for the future?" He was surprised by the question. "Plans?" She fidgeted, hesitated, then replied awkwardly, "Yes, you see, I have 1 year left. And you have 2 years before graduating from the academy. After graduation, don't you have any plans?" Blair placed his hand on hers and answered, "Honestly, I haven't really thought about it yet. Maybe I'll stay at St. Donat to work as a teaching assistant." Isabella quickly grabbed his arm. "Didn't your parents ask you to go to the royal capital?" "After graduation, I'm going to the Royal Magic Academy." She smiled encouragingly. "Don't worry, my father can help you get in there too. That way, we can study at the same school." In her mind, she thought, "Then I'll get to eat the meals Blair cooks every day." Although his talent in math and magic is stronger than mine. He's easy to tease. Living with him sounds fun. Blair turned his face away and replied, "You're right, but going to the royal capital would waste a lot of time. Right now, I just want to stay at St. Donat and focus on researching magic." Isabella looked disappointed. How can you really research magic properly if you stay at St. Donat? Blair scratched his head and smiled. Isn't Brittany here? Her talent and ability in magic is enough to teach me. Suddenly, Isabella's expression darkened, and the word Brittany flashed through her mind. Instantly, she raised her hand. Blair turned pale, fearing the worst. Isabella grabbed his shoulder angrily and shouted, "Research magic? I think you just want to stay with Brittany and don't want to come with me." Huh? Tell me, do you find me annoying? Do you like Brittany more? Blair's head spun as she shook him. Please, stop, Auntie. I'm begging you, don't shake me so hard. Just then, Teacher Brittany rubbed her eyes and entered the room. She gently asked Isabella, "Blair, why aren't you two asleep yet?" Blinking slowly, she looked at the two standing close together and stammered, "What are you two doing?" The next morning, Isabella happily enjoyed some bread and milk. Everyone sat around the table having breakfast. Blair thought to himself, "Last night I finally tried learning a new magic. It drained all my spiritual energy. But this morning I really feel my limit has increased. Seems like this method works." Suddenly, Teacher Brittany said, "Well, I understand young people like you. But honestly, you're still too young for those kinds of things." Blair quickly stood up and waved his hands. "Teacher Brittany, you misunderstood. Last night Isabella and I were just talking about our plans after graduation. Nothing else." Teacher Brittany sighed in relief. "Oh, I see. I thought it was a misunderstanding. Don't mind it." Suddenly, Isabella slammed her hand on the table hard. The room fell silent. She forced a smile and said, "Teacher Brittany, I have an early class today, so I'll head out first." Teacher Brittany replied, "All right." Isabella quickly rushed out the door, giving Blair a swift smack on the face. "Did you two fight this morning?" Brittany asked worriedly. Blair slumped over the table, trembling. "No, not at all." Then Brittany suddenly remembered. "Oh yes, Blair, if you have time this morning." She placed a thick stack of papers on the table as Blair looked on with watery eyes. "Could you take my thesis about demon numbers to the math association for me?" Blair nodded and followed her request, carrying the pile of papers toward the math association. On the way, he thought, Brittany's math talent really is extraordinary. I only gave a few pointers and she completed the proof and definition of irrational numbers by herself. So, the demon number problem is basically solved. Standing before a large but old and shabby building, Blair felt confused. Is this really the math association? Why does it look so run down? Did I come to the wrong place? He went inside, where many people were busy working. He looked around, bewildered. Audrey, who was sitting nearby taking notes, called out, "Excuse me, are you here to submit a manuscript or collect a reward? If submitting, please put it on the table. If collecting, go upstairs, turn left, and find the clerk for the stamp." Blair replied, "I'm here to submit a manuscript." Audrey looked up, surprised. "Wait, you're Blair Hoang?" All eyes turned to Blair, who was stunned. He pointed at himself and asked, "You know me?" Audrey grabbed his hand excitedly. "Of course, I saw you at the academic exchange. The time you solved the 7 bridges problem and introduced the demon number." An old man holding a book approached, admiringly asking, "Blair, it's really you in the flesh. Could I have your autograph?" Audrey asked curiously, "Blair, have you discovered anything important? Can you share some with us?" Blair quickly dodged. "Sorry everyone, I'm just here to submit a manuscript for my teacher. I have other things to do." As he turned to leave, everyone cheered and waved their nameplates. A white-haired man shouted after him, "If you're in a hurry, go ahead, you can pick up the reward anytime later if you have time." Blair stopped and wondered, "Reward?" He put on his glasses and turned back. "Reward?" Tran Lack was standing near the bulletin boards, wanting to ask the man there for some help. Audrey scratched his head and apologized. "Sorry, I made a mistake. I thought you came to claim a reward. But it turns out you're submitting a manuscript." "Well then, Blair, please take your time." Tran Lack wasn't in a hurry and whistled casually. "Actually, now that I think about it, it's not that urgent. Could you explain more about this reward thing?" Audrey was startled when he heard this. "Blair, you don't know about the association's reward system?" He explained as enthusiastically as possible. "The Math Association offers rewards for solving difficult problems. Scholars who solve them can receive a cash prize. The amount depends on the difficulty, at least 10 gold coins and with no upper limit." Tran Lack listened carefully and firmly decided, "So that's how it is. I want to take a look at these problems." Audrey agreed and said, "Follow me." Tran Lak was extremely excited about the challenges. Alright, they arrived at the place where the reward problems were kept. Audrey said, Blair, here you go. These are all the reward problems currently posted by the ABBA Math Association. He looked over them and added, many of these problems have been here since before I arrived, and no one has solved them yet. I don't even know if I'll see the solution in my lifetime. Even one answer would be great. Do you want to say something? Tran Lak hesitated, then asked, could you leave me here alone? I want to think deeply about these problems. Audrey nodded, sure, if you need anything, just call me. Tran Lak began to use all his abilities, focusing intensely on solving these math problems. Others noticed and asked, Deputy Director Audrey, aren't you worried about Blair? Shouldn't you pay attention to him? He calmly replied, no, I trust him completely, especially at times like this. Don't disturb him. A mathematical genius like Blair often gets sudden flashes of insight. If we interrupt, we could rob him of those precious moments. And we'd be cursed forever. Audrey was delighted, but the other man still seemed worried. Suddenly, Blair disappeared. It looks like Blair is gone already. Deputy Director Audrey was shocked to the extreme. Tran Lak clenched his fists with joy. The total posted reward is 535 gold coins. And the problems themselves are actually quite simple. Some are even solvable by elementary school students from another world. So, I was worried about not having money to buy new magic. But this math association may look shabby. Yet it's actually quite rich. He thought, I don't want to interfere with the pace of math development here. But, he was so happy he almost cried. They are offering so much money. Tran Lak strolled down the street, thinking he should quietly gather the money and then plan carefully before claiming it the next morning. Passers-by looked at him like he was a strange creature, whispering, oh my, that guy is so weird. Let's just ignore him. The next morning, Deputy Director Audrey was busy taking notes while the other man was sweeping as usual. He sighed and said, Deputy Director Audrey, do you really think Blair is that good? Why did he leave right after looking at the reward board yesterday? Audrey replied, you don't understand. Even renowned university scholars haven't solved those problems. So they've remained unsolved for so long. Even a genius like Blair can't solve them easily. Suddenly, a stack of papers was placed on his desk with a thump. Here it is. The man brushed his hands. I'm here to claim my reward. Please verify it as quickly as possible and calculate the prize. Audrey asked again, what problems are these? Why are there so many? Because these are all of them. Both were stunned by Tran Lak's ability. Tran Lak confidently said, these are all 23 reward problems posted by the ABBA Math Association. All the answers are here. The papers were full of complicated mathematical formulas. Audrey broke into a cold sweat as he checked each solution in disbelief. One associate nervously reported, Deputy Director Audrey, you've finished checking. They're all correct. Audrey couldn't believe it. It's true. All the solutions have been found. I never thought I'd witness such a miracle in my lifetime. Others were also shocked. That's incredible. Who is this person? Audrey declared loudly. This is something no scholar in the Nolan Empire or even the Shin'en continent has ever done. Tran Lak sighed, thinking, this terrifying person can only be described as the god of mathematics. Audrey approached him joyfully. Sir Blair. Tran Lak was dreamy. Is it done? He rubbed his eyes. Have you finished verifying everything? They respectfully answered, the solutions are perfect, without a single mistake. Your contribution to mathematics is truly beyond words. May I ask how you wish to be addressed? He replied, my name is Tran Lak. He continued, if there are no issues with the verification, please pay me the reward. The total is 535 gold coins. Audrey froze. He kept talking about the money. This is our first cooperation. Can you round it down to 530 gold coins? Everyone said in unison, Sir Tran Lak. Lily was surprised. He said simply, to buy new magic.